Sloppy Spoilers with your host, DT2. All right, y'all. DT2 Comic Chat here. And tonight, on this episode of Sloppy Spoilers, we're going to be talking about the Hulu original movie Prey, which is set in the Predator world. And do we have a lot to say? You better believe we do. Let me bring my co-host right in. Welcome to David, Nemesis Howard.
Hey, what's going on? Looking forward to talking about this movie. Man, I really wanted to like it. There's some stuff that I do like about it, but we got to talk about the stuff that they just did wrong. You know, it's unfortunate. So we'll get to it.
Some stuff is just wrong. Welcome to Steve, Shade Wing Sellers. How you doing, Steve?
I ain't got time to bleed. I'm not sure if I have time for this movie either, but I definitely don't have time to bleed. Oh yeah, this movie. I mean, it was kind of hard for me to happen. You know, there are some things that get better about it, but it's just I'm not feeling it. Sorry, guys.
Okay, and welcome to Jeff, Dr. Fate Bracey.
Yeah.
I'm okay with this meme being a thing now.
Okay, is it
this movie isn't hunting me. I'm hunting it.
All right. All right. I'm going to start off our pod tonight with a definition. What is a Mary Sue? Okay. Now I'm going to show you a few things. Okay. The term Mary Sue, well, that's talking about the website, but the actual term came out of Star Trek. It was a piece of Star Trek fan fiction that was meant to be satire, published by Paula Smith in a Star Trek fanzine back in '73. The fanzine was named Menagerie. The name of the actual piece was called The Trekkie's Tale. And Lieutenant Mary Sue gets the attention of Kirk, and he falls in love with her right away. And Spock does as well, but he admires her logic. Mary Sue is only 15 and a half years old. She takes over the Enterprise, saves the day, wins the Nobel Peace Prize, the Vulcan Order of Gallantry, the Tralfamadorian Order of Good Guyhood. She also then reveals that she's half Vulcan, and then she ends up dying tragically, and everybody's mourning her beautiful youth, her intelligence, blah, 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 blah. So she's perfect. She's also representing an insert character. So it's not just, a Trekkie's Tale is not just making fun of the fanfic authors, but it's talking about how when you write a character that's obviously a self-insert character, and they can do things better than everyone around them, blah, 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 blah. So that's the origin of the actual term of Mary Sue. What you need to understand is that definition has expanded. And once again, these are arguments that I'm going to stop having on Twitter because people keep saying, you don't know the origin of that phrase. I'm like, yes, I do. I know where it comes from. Well, you don't know what that phrase means. Yes, I do. Okay, let me ask you something. Do words and phrases evolve or not? Let's do an example. Deck the halls with boughs of holly. Fa la 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 la, la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Fa la 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 la, la 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 la. Down we now our gay apparel. Fa la 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 la, la 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 la. Gay in that context meant happy, joyful, vibrant. Now it means same-sex relationships. So I challenge you to go anywhere and say something is gay and try to use the 1930s definition. That's not how people are going to hear it. They're going to hear the same-sex relationship definition because that's what the word has come to mean.
Well, I will say I'm not very gay about parts of this movie.
So Mary Sue started out as a satire-based term on a character in fan fiction where the author is inserting themselves, obviously, and the character is perfect. The character is instantly fallen in love with by the other characters. They can do everything that they need to do. They have no flaws, and people don't do anything but notice how beautifully perfect and perfectly beautiful they are. The term has now expanded to mean characters that don't earn their stripes. It means that you're able to do something that there is no in-story justification for you to be able to do what you're doing. No training, no suffering, no sacrifice. You can just do it. You just got powers. You just got abilities. You got skills. Everybody loves you. Everybody takes one look at you and they love you. And if it's a female, all the men are willing to die for you for no reason. So don't tell me I don't know what that term means. And don't tell me that words can't expand and evolve and include other things. I know there's such a thing as a Gary Stu or Gary Stu, a male version of that character, and that's real as well. But the point I'm trying to make is that there's a reason in geekdom and fandom we use this phrase. Started out as an author self-insert who was perfect and everybody fell in love with him, has expanded to mean people where there is no in-story reason for them to be able to do what they can do, along with the other descriptions. Okay? And it seems like there is a daily fight on Twitter as to what qualifies for a Mary Sue. So we're going to check off some boxes on Naru to see by the end of this pod if she actually qualifies for the term Mary Sue or not. So this movie, if you're not familiar with Prey, it's an original movie on Hulu, and it's about a predator coming to Earth, but in the past, and how the Comanche tribe people that he ends up encountering, and also how the colonials that he ends up encountering, how he deals with that. This is set in 1719, okay? And there's a little twist at the end, sloppy spoilers, about the gun, about the pistol, because it's the one that Danny Glover sees at the end of Predator 2.
Which begs a whole load of other questions.
Right, which creates a whole load of other questions. So
Can I interrupt?
I'm gonna set the stage for it, then I'm gonna throw it to my co-host. So what you have to understand, the first thing we learn about this girl, besides that she's obviously a teenager, is that her focus, her desire, her goal is proving that she's as good of a hunter as the boys. So the boys are mocking her, the boys are scorning her, the boys don't take her seriously. Sometimes the grown women don't take her seriously, but she's got this burning desire inside of her to prove that she can hunt just as good as the males. This is how we meet her. And this is her quest for the movie. Okay, Nims.
No, I wasn't interrupting you for a story thing. I just wanted to share something with you, and I'm sorry. I'm very excited. I just got this delivered to me, hand delivered by my wife. This just came in.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome-tacular.
Shirt.
Bell hand.
Blood World is coming.
So sorry about that, but literally while you were talking, I was handed that, and damn. Okay.
You had to share. Okay.
Yeah.
That's some damn sexy art. Whoever did that.
Whoever, yeah. Do we know that guy?
Hello, nurse.
So we.
That's how you would do a tribal barbarian character.
Yeah.
So we discover right away that, we're in the northern Great Plains in 1719, and Naru so far has been dismissed by the male members of her tribe. And because they don't take her seriously as a warrior, she can't be a hunter. And right off is, you can't do this because you're a girl. So right off the bat, you know what that smacked of to me? Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. That was her whole movie. Is, you can't do this, or they told me all the stuff I couldn't do, and I decided to rise up and prove them wrong and all this different kind of stuff. So whether you think so or not, I want to hear, I'm going to throw it to my co-host. This is either a low-key or in-your-face girl boss type of theme from the jump that I feel necessary to prove myself against the males of my tribe that I am just as competent, but you already know the movie's going to show that she's more competent. You already know that's what's going to happen. So here's the last thing I have to say before I throw it out. I can't tell anymore if we are now so jaded by this kind of stuff until we've lost objectivity. Because I try to think about, what if I saw this movie at a different time? How would I have seen it? And I can honestly say my reaction would have been the same, but because it's the same reaction when I had when I saw Avatar. As soon as the Sam Worthington character, I forget his name when he's in his Avatar suit, as soon as they said nobody's ever ridden a red dragon before, I was like, oh, okay, well that means this guy is going to do it. That's what that means in a movie. You got 300 years of natives that can't master it, but you got, and you might call that white savior complex. He comes in less than 3 days in a body that's not really his. He's got it.
Yeah, it's the chosen one trope.
Right. It's the exact same reaction I would have. Okay, because that's a reaction I did have as soon as I saw that setup. So I do know that we have to deal with this stuff so much now until it colors how you see things. So I was trying to be objective, but I was like, no, it's the same kind of thing. Okay, when you tell me that in the first 5 minutes of the film, then we already know the story beats. We already know that you're going to survive. We already know that you're going to best everything that gets in your way. Although they did give us a couple of jump scares and surprises here, but I didn't buy those either. And we know that by movie's end, you're going to be the one standing there with whatever symbol of dominance that there is. We already know that in 5 minutes. Okay. So whether you want to call that girl power or not, or what did Jeff just call that chosen one trope, or a combination of the two, or Mary Sue, whatever, this is what the movie tells us from the jump. Okay. Now I want to hear what you guys think about the opening. Start with Nims.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this movie reminded me a lot of Mulan. That kind of story. And Mulan is an actual Chinese tale. And I don't have a problem with the concept per se. But if you're going to do it, you need to place it and make it realistic and put it in a place where it could happen. And I've got a number of issues with the historical accuracy, and I'm being a little anal about it because I am native and I see a lot of things that were wrong in that perspective. But just from a traditional tribal perspective, if a woman, wanted to take on this new role, no one is going to make any allowances for her. You're not going to pick up these skills naturally. You're going to have to train. You're going to have to go through all the hazing, the initiations, the rituals, everything else to pick up these skills. And even then, you're going to have to be better than everybody else in order to be able to be in this. But you're going to have to learn those skills. And we need to see that. And I think that's where there is an element of Mary Sudom, because we start off with her being incredibly skilled in a way that's stupid. And that was my big problem. And we're going to get to that later. But real quick, I'll mention one thing that's incredibly stupid. She wants to be a hunter. That's fine. At one point, she's hunting rabbits. She's hunting rabbits with a hatchet, with a tomahawk. I'm like, you got a goddamn bow on your shoulder. Excuse my language. I'm like, what are you throwing a hatchet at rabbits for? It's never going to work. Never. And then she walks away with the rabbit over her shoulder. That is Mary Sudom. And the only I will challenge you to find anyone who is skilled at throwing hatchets or axes who can hit a rabbit from 20 yards throwing it. I challenge you to find anyone. I dare say you will not find more than maybe 1 or 2 people in the entire world who would even have a chance. So, that's kind of what I took away from this. So Mulan as a story, that concept is plausible, but you need to do an awful lot of work putting it in, establishing the character and the society. She would be not only hated by many of the, or resented by the women and treated as an outcast by the women in her tribe. She would be treated as a disappointment as a daughter and not really accepted until she proved herself greatly within the hunters and the warriors. So you need to have shown that, and then I could have bought it.
You need to have shown it, and like you said, it needs to be believable. It needs to have the proper resistance, and then it needs to be organic. It needs to be organic. I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but there were countless times in this movie where she was saved because of main character powers. Because she was done a couple of times, but she didn't die. See, so she didn't think her way out, and she didn't fight her way out. It was I'm the main character way out, which, you know, so those are two ticks towards Mary Suter. You can throw a hatch and somehow you know how to catch that thing right at the right angle without it taking your hand off at the wrist, okay? And which can't be done anyway, but it's something you can do because when you put that string on it, it comes back right the way you want it. You know how long you have to practice that just to get it right. And if you're wrong one time, there goes your right hand. And then again, when we talk about it, when we get into detail, we'll talk about the time she came this close to death. She didn't think her way out. She didn't fight her way out, as opposed to somebody like Sarah Connor, who changed who she was to rise to the challenge, as opposed to someone like Ellen Ripley, who changed who she was because of her love for Newt and went head on against her adversary, as opposed to somebody like Xena, who had spent years, her name is Xena, warrior princess. That's what she did, was fight. And she had trained with a whole lot of people. And that's different from what we see with this girl. Okay, Steve, what do you think? Opening thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, we've been talking about a lot about Mary Sue's, and I try to think of like the modern phenomenon of this is a little bit different than the they talk about, which is, you know, just the insert character. The thing of it is that what we're getting are what I like to call the misunderstood girl, and it comes from this weird idea in Hollywood that you can't have or that shows vulnerability or that shows, you know, real empathy or anything like that. They always have to be these strong, you know, take charge characters who, you know, show, you know, absolutely no human frailty at all. And I think it wouldn't be so bothersome in this movie if I keep seeing all of them, you know, and it wasn't so overdone. You know, the Lord of the Rings, they are writing the lessons as exactly this kind of character, and I hate it because this is what the person. And in this case, it's maybe a little bit not as bad as that because there are moments where she loses. She loses fights. You know, there are moments where she suffers setbacks, but at the same time, she still has that misunderstood girl boss character where it's like, okay, you know, I want to show that I'm better than the boys. I want to show that, you know, I don't have to be, you know, just the healer, which would perfectly be a legitimate, you know, thing to follow. That do. But no, she wants to be a hunter. This is what the misunderstood girl boss is all about. She has to do the guy's role and do all the fighting as well. And, you know, and it's like, okay, if you want to do that, that's fine. But, you know, why do you want to do that? What is, you know, what is driving you to do that? We don't see that. If she had been, you know, traumatized by a predator as a child, you know, she, you know, spending her whole life trying to prove that this thing exists so she can catch it, you know, that would be reasonable. It would be not so far from what Ellen did in AIDS. She was traumatized by her encounter with the alien, and she had to rebuild herself to be the badass she is at the end of the movie, and that's her arc. And that's the other understood robots is that there is no arc. They are like this from day one, and they don't grow that much. And even though she does, you know, pick up a little bit here and there, you know, she learns how to use I mean, for the most part, it doesn't feel like she's moving from the bottom of the total pole to the top. She feels like she's already starting at least halfway up or higher, and then maybe a little bit down. Cool, strong female characters. I understand female characters, you know, that can be as badass. I completely. But the problem is that they do it the wrong way. And the misunderstood girl boss is, you know, people trying to do this. They don't know how to make these things interesting anymore. And although I think that Naru is bad and some more examples that I've seen, there is definitely a I can only support you guys pain. Okay, there's in there. It is definitely.
Steve,
We're
you're
only
really
catching about half.
Yeah,
of
am I the only one hearing this?
no, you're really breaking it bad. You're doing
Yeah.
the Borg treatment on
Yeah,
us.
you're
We're
roboting
only
like
catching
crazy,
about
man.
half of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, where did I leave off?
Oh,
I can't even tell you.
it was the whole time. You
Okay.
really were just.
Okay.
It sounded
All right.
like
Okay, I'll just kind of. Okay. Basically say that the idea is that the Mary Sue character and the misunderstood girl boss character, I think there's different phenomena, but the problem really is that trope. It's not done effectively here. It's a little bit better here than in something like Princess Leia Galadriel from Rings of Power. It's not as bad as that, but it's just a concept that we keep seeing over and over in recent shows and recent films. And I think this is why it's kind of starting to gnaw on me. It is too repetitive. These people do not know how to make a female character interesting in ways that do not involve reserving to this trope that we keep seeing over and over again, because they can't find a way to show strong femininity in different ways than being, masculine and take charge and headstrong all the time. And it's getting repetitive and it's tiresome. And I really wish we didn't see that in this film.
Okay, now one thing I do have to say, and I have to admit some bias, and that is that these terms don't really have any meaning for me anymore. They don't really carry any real weight because they're overused. And so once you slap a label on everything, okay, it's like, what's his name said in Incredibles, if everybody got powers, nobody does. If everybody's super, nobody is. So if everybody's a racist, nobody is. If everybody's a misogynist, nobody is. If everybody's a hater, nobody is. So those terms, I told you, I reject the language at the gate. I don't accept the vocabulary of that whole thing. But these terms don't have any meaning for me anymore. That's why I started off with the actual meaning of a term that's been in fandom since 73 that doesn't have anything to do with the last 5-6 years. Okay? But these terms now, strong female character, I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? I don't even know what that means, because once you have people saying that no matter how you write it, it ain't right or it ain't enough, then that just loses all meaning for me. Okay, because every time you aim at nothing, you hit it. If you don't have any clear parameters or definitions about what you mean by that, then how can that have any meaning? So this language now for me is just like whatever. It sounds like wah 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 wah. It sounds like Charlie Brown adults talking when people are talking about how you need to write strong female character. What does that mean? What does that mean? How you define it strong? Okay, strong according to who? Because if this one group over here likes it, but this other group don't like it, then this other group will be talking about how it's wrong. So,
just to chime in on that real quick, one of the things that bothered me was the implication. There's a moment where the female character is woken up towards the middle of the movie, and she's woken up to get up with all of the other women to go do what the women are doing. And it's implicated that these women are doing less than what the men are doing, and you see women going out into the mist before everybody else is up. And one woman has a child on her back. They're going out to do the hard work.
Repeated. That's the very first scene you see. And then that happens again before the second part of the film.
And they're getting,
and I would say the mother character, that's a better than the girl boss character who's the main character. Because she does show a certain kind of strength. She is a leader of her community. She is a medicine woman. She has a certain level of power, even if it's not like physical power going out and things. That's perfectly respectable.
And the one thing I appreciated in this movie is that at least all of the other women weren't giving this female character the "you go girl" treatment. That didn't happen.
Right.
Till the end.
I appreciated that. To a certain extent, but I think they were more happy that she was back. We could talk about that one, but I've got more to say about the ending anyway.
It's totally the framing, man. The framing of that last scene.
I can see that. I can see how you could say that, but at least through the whole movie, I didn't like it have the I was waiting for the stereotypical speech you would get from the mother, which would be like, I was like, you go and fulfill your dreams because I've been beat down and crushed down and held in place here. And that whole thing that you get all the time. We didn't get that, so I was waiting for that. So I was grateful that didn't happen. So.
All right, Bracy, what do you think? Initial thoughts?
I really wanted to like this film. I really, really did. And I started out at least half liking the film. So far for me, like the best Predator films are Predator 1, Predator 2, and Predators, the much maligned Robert Rodriguez film. Which
I like that movie.
Yeah, a lot of people give it some crap because, like, oh, you got Adrian Brody instead of Schwarzenegger. It's like, well, Schwarzenegger's an outlier, man. Like, we've been in the military, you and I. Like, there's very few dudes who are all swole up like that. There's a couple of them, but that's not the average soldier. The average soldier looks like Brody, lean and mean and ready to go. So, again, like right off the get-go, I'm like, she's waking up in makeup. That's really weird. That's not a thing that's done. And I wish that the people doing this film had done a little bit more research. I know you're not going to get everything right. You will if you care. But if you're making a movie basically for the normies, you kind of play fast and loose with things. I'm willing to accept that. It's cinema, it's entertainment. But if you're trying to do all this cultural relevance and this identitarian sort of stuff, put the effort in. Like look at films like Apocalypto or Dances with Wolves, where they really put some effort into trying to be authentic. And part of what bothers me about that is they pepper their language with what I'm supposing is the Comanche tongue, and they don't. I like things where they say they'd say a word and then the dog would go run off, like the dog understood what you were saying. Now, I don't feel like that's necessary if we know the film is going to be a translation of their language into our terms. What I don't like is the times they would say something and then they would translate it for the audience. It's like, no. Use context. Let us know that's what this word means. Like, just tell them, say some word that I don't know how to repeat. And like, the other person understood, like, be quiet or, go or do this. You get that in the context. You don't have to play like we're stupid. Don't do that. That's insulting. And the other problem right away is I wish they'd taken the effort to do a little bit more like Dances with Wolves or True Grit, where we have the HBO's Spartacus series, where we see people talking in a particular cadence of dialect. The Indians did not talk like us. Yeah. And I appreciate movies where, like, if you look at even True Grit, which was just a few hundred years ago, we hear the difference in the way the people in the Wild West are speaking. And I found that really fun and refreshing and something I hadn't heard, like where they took the time to explore what sort of terminology was being used. Even in shows like Vikings, they tried to bring that sort of cadence that the people might have spoken based on what they know of Scandinavian languages today and trying to retrofit that in. That adds so much wonderful texture and depth to the world when you can do that. And to me, a lot of these actors just sounded like California natives playing a role, which was unfortunate. I would have liked a little bit more authenticity. If you're trying to shoot for that sort of thing, go for it. If you're not, then just make a B film. Don't worry about it. Just make some schlocky, slap-happy entertainment. But if you're trying to do something, if you're trying to say something, commit to it, please. Another point with that is I didn't feel like I was looking at some dudes who made their living off the land. I wish the actors had all taken time to train up a little bit more. Like even her, especially her, if she's got these aspirations of being a warrior, I wish she looked a little bit more toned. She was actually a little puffy in the face, which was very distracting when you look at the older Native women who were in the cast, specifically her mother. I look at these people and I want to see somebody that looks like Wes Studi. Man, Wes Studi looks like he lives it. If you watch him in Last of the Mohicans, you're like, that dude's a flipping Indian right there, man. He is legit. So I want to see a little bit more like that. That can be all considered a nitpick. My big problem with this character is, like every girl boss character, she's got a flipping chip on her shoulder. We don't get a motivation as to why she wants to be a hunter other than none of you believe I can. This is the Riri Williams. This is the Ironheart. Like, oh, you tell me something I can't be. You know, like I wasn't expecting you to say I could be anything. You can't be Iron Man. Ha! I've got you now, oppressor. I'm going to do something. And so that's her whole motivation. It would have been so much more interesting. The father is apparently deceased. We don't know why. Wouldn't it be cool if, like, maybe dad, you know, he's got this older son and he's already becoming a strong warrior, and you know, what if he's just inclined to teach his daughter woodcraft and hunting and things like that? You know, she's already going out in the woods, learning the aspects of being a medicine woman. So as long as you're going to be out here, and if you're out here alone, you know, if you don't have a defender or protector with you, let me teach you some things that'll help you along the way. And then have dad get knocked off by a predator. Now she's got a motivation. Now she's seen something nobody else does. So like when she says there's something else out there, even if they don't necessarily believe her, maybe they think that she's been a little touched or a little addled because of this experience, which cost life of her father. But you know, it does lend what she says more weight in the context of the story. We know even if the tribe doesn't, and so we're more on board with her. Unfortunately, they do the disappointing thing of making her insufferable. It's always this kind of snappy, somewhat snarky, in your face thing when that's not how tribes work. Tribes survive together. This isn't I get to go off and do what I do. Everybody had a role. And you see that right off the get-go. And that's another thing that bothered me. Like mom smacks her and she should have just popped up like she was a soldier. Oh, time to go to work. You know, you just do that. You know, like this is the lifeblood of the tribe. Everybody has their role to play. And if somebody fails, then it's a detriment to the entire tribe. And I would have kind of liked to have seen a little bit more ostracism out of that if she is going to be this outlier, this deviant from their culture. We should see that more reflected. Now, we do get little tastes of it. Obviously, the young males, Hazer, and rightly so. This is not the structure of this world that they live in. And so, you know, she gets that. Her brother is sympathetic because he's a brother. I think he's a little too sympathetic in terms of the film. Her mother's relationship with her actually feels more true. And even then, you get this lines like, you're so good at so many things. So I'm like, oh, she's girl boss, but she wants to be girl boss at everything. So she's not satisfied with being, you know, really amazing at all these other things. We don't know anything else other than the medicine and the tracking. We know she's phenomenal at that. And again, that would have played into my fix for this story. Like she learned how to hunt and track from her dad, just teaching her how to be safe out in the woods on her own. So that would have been a lot better. The one thing I do commend the film for is they do show her training. We do see her practicing with her tomahawk. We do see her practicing her hunting craft, her gathering. These are nice things. She doesn't win every fight, which I appreciated like the Dickens. But I think a lot of people enjoyed this film more than I did because when the bar has been set so low for films in the past several years, that if you get something that's mediocre, you're like, that's the best thing ever because, you know, you've been down here and suddenly you're just up to the middle and you're like, man, that was incredible. Like, but it's not incredible. It's not incredible. And it had the potential to be incredible. It really did. I think if they'd played it a different way, if the brother became closer with the sister in honor of her father's wishes, and maybe he also suspects he saw some evidence of what she'd seen if the father got knocked off by the predator, and so like they've got this understanding the rest of the tribe doesn't get, because it's like Nim said, like she should have been ostracized for her just kind of disobedience of the culture. It'd be like if you're an Amish person and you get caught with a Walkman, people are going to look at you kind of screw-eyed, you know, like you just don't happen. That's their culture. They assuage technology. So I really wanted to see more of that, and I wish they built it in there. And I was hoping they were heading there by the end, but of course, you know, it becomes all about her being her when there was a great opportunity to tell a family story here. And the whole movie, she is almost constantly insufferable, and she screws up a lot. Like Nim said, like she's hunting a rabbit with a hatchet. That's fine. We've seen how good you can hit a tree, and hitting a rabbit on the fly would be ridiculously hard. But you couldn't even hit the thing sitting still. So what's wrong with you? You couldn't hit an 8-foot tall grizzly bear with a bow and arrow running straight at you. So, you're going to take down the monster.
Right.
No, like so. By the time we get later in the film, by the time we get to the French trappers, I just let out this huge sigh. I was done with this character.
I will say real quick, and I hope we are going to get to this though. All of what we've said is true, but the part that really took me out of the film, and like I said, I've said this online on Twitter. When I turned my brain off, the first time I watched the movie, I didn't watch it critically. I just watched it to enjoy it. And I'll be perfectly honest, I was 3 sheets to the wind. So I enjoyed it because I wasn't thinking about anything. It was just fun fare. But the thing that really took me out of the movie completely, and I hope we talk about it, is the magical herb MacGuffin that hides you from the predator.
Okay.
Cools your blood.
No, we're definitely going to talk about that. One thing I want to say.
Because didn't you think when she fell in the mud that was going to be the thing? They were going to call back to Arnold?
I did. I thought that's exactly what was going to happen. But one thing that I will say, while we're still here, even at the beginning of all this, is this right here. And that is that there's 2 pretentious things that the movie asks us to accept. The first thing it asks us to accept is that when she sees the predator ship arriving, she says it's an omen, it's a thunderbird, so it means it's time for me to prove I'm a warrior. You know what that is? That is, I will use any excuse possible to do this because I'm going to do this anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, there's that, number one. And number two, if you don't know anything about the background of the predators, you never read any books, but you've only watched the movies, you may not understand that the trip to Earth is often the proving ground for the young predator. It's often the proving ground for the predator to prove to his tribe that he can hunt what they call the soft meat, and that they can prevail. Okay? And so I found it lacking that aspect of the movie isn't more clear, because we meet the predator and he's tearing the spines out of animals. And my first response to that was, why? Yeah, is it practicing? Are you hungry? Like, why are you doing that? We need some kind of context. And so the movie's just assuming we're going to say, oh, it's a predator. No, you need to understand why predators do what they do.
Especially a rattlesnake?
Yeah, predator would just ignore a rattlesnake. Come on.
Right. So, predators.
Well, even a wolf, I kind of had a hard time buying.
Predators
the bear, I was cool
predators
with
have
the
to
bear.
get blooded. And then when you see someone getting blooded, you actually see that in Alien versus Predator. So what happens is that they take part of the blood from the thing they kill. In this case, they take the alien. So it's the acid blood, and they put a mark or a tattoo or a symbol on their face to prove that I went up against the enemy, I killed it, and I marked myself with its blood. I'm a true warrior. That's the significance of the predator marking the Sanaa Lathan character with the blood in the movie, and shows that the predator now has respect for her because they overcame the alien thing.
See, they understand that to a degree, because we see both her brother and later herself do the same thing with the blood of their kills, with the puma blood, and then later with the predator blood. And like if you guys make that connection, why couldn't you follow through?
That's what I'm saying. It's not clear enough. If you're approaching this movie without any background, it's not clear enough why the predator is there. The movie's just assuming that, we're just assuming, well, it's a predator and blah, blah, blah. But when he's hunting small game, I'm like, for food, for practice, for what, you have superior everything. That was the whole point and premise of the first movie. And like I said, when you read the background stuff, you understand that you need to be able to take out some of these humans and come back. And that's what legitimizes you. That's why the predators are so impressed with humans that beat them. Mm-hmm. That's the Schwarzenegger movie, and that's the Glover movie.
Well, the predator is incredibly stupid, inept, and ends up cutting its own arm off. Which
we'll get there.
Right. Yeah. Which again signifies.
Yeah, this is definitely like a rookie predator, somebody who's trying to prove himself. It's just not very good at being a predator.
So when you introduce that, then you're like, well, this isn't even a real senior predator anyway. This is not even a real experienced dude. We don't know what this is, but he's like a Three Stooges predator. Just whoop, 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 whoops, arm going. I'm like, come on now. So hard for me to take it seriously, but we'll get there.
There were points in this movie where I was honestly expecting to hear the Benny Hill theme with them trying to run away from him.
Also, I'm gonna throw this out and y'all react to it as we go. But I don't know how to say this. I think the dog had main character powers too.
Yeah,
because I think that dog.
I totally thought the Predator's gonna scalp that thing.
I thought that dog would have been.
The dog was the best character in the movie, bar none.
At least 3 times, I thought that dog was.
Well, as long as we're on the dog too, I don't know that we get to the scene, but my French is rusty, and I didn't go back and watch it because I didn't care to. But when the guy was approaching the dog with the knife, I think that he said he was going to release the dog, and the girl killed him for it. So, I mean, granted, my French is rusty. He might have been saying something completely different, but from what I could catch, it sounded like I'm going to release the dog. I'm letting the dog go. And she took it as he was going to kill the dog, and she killed everybody. So I was like, okay.
Again, we'll get to that.
Now, Nims, you just reminded me of the main comparison I wanted to make. So I'm actually glad you said that. And here it comes. If you are going to be Laura, if you're going to be X-23, you got to be her from the jump. You don't get to not be her when the movie starts and be her by movie's end. Yeah. If you're Wolverine's daughter, only Wolverine's daughter would I buy half of this stuff from. Okay? So if this was an X-23 movie, I actually would have bought it. But we'll get there. Okay, so she gets the omen. She sees the Thunderbird. Ooh, I must prove myself. Okay, so we see all different kind of stuff. And so they're hunting a mountain lion, which as soon as they said that, I'm like, do y'all know anything about mountain lions? I would have made that girl stay home. I would have been like, just sit down. We're going to go handle this. Just don't,
I sure wouldn't hunt them in the dark.
Right. And timing is everything here. And we can't have no strange sense. We can't have anything throw us off. So you just need to, but anyway, I wouldn't have taken my little sister on how much she insisted. But anyway, so they discover the wounded members of their tribe, and the mountain lions been spooked away because there's an invisible creature that's watching the tribe and tracking their movements. And once again, he's already ripping out the spines out of wild animals and whatnot. And I agree that were this true kind of Comanche situation, that a lot of these situations wouldn't really have happened as we see them happen in the film. Okay, so I can't figure out what the Predator was trying to figure out. If he was trying to, once again, that's why I need a little bit more context. If he was trying to figure out earth animals, or he was trying to figure out, are they food or are they sport? If he was warming up, we've never seen a predator warm up before with snakes and squirrels. What are you, did you just get your tech or something? Did you just get your predator suit? Whatever. And so it serves to make the predator almost a fish out of water in his own movie. Almost, not quite, but almost. You're like, what are you doing there? And that's the same thing that Star Trek Into Darkness says when they introduce Cumberbatch, and Kirk's like, who are you? He says, my name is Khan. Dun, dun, dun. And I'm like, y'all do realize in the context of that movie, they don't know who that is, right? That you're writing a movie as if the characters know what the audience knows.
Well, it's pretty funny because the characters all kind of look like, yeah, so.
Right. So what? But they had that big dramatic build up to him saying, my name is Khan. That's, pure. If the characters know what we know, that's what that felt like a little bit here to me. Because this whole movie is basically supposed to be a haunted house in the forest. And I get that. But I don't know. These things just throw me off because it feels like tonal and logic shifts from scene to scene. It feels like things that shouldn't make sense to add up in the same film. So they're going after the lion, and the predator's out there doing what he's doing, hunting rabbits like Elmer Fudd. Okay, so then next up, they ended up just to truncate, ended up getting captured. The French voyagers capture her because she sees the predator, and she's trying to escape after seeing the predator for the first time. And then that was another really, really touchy situation that I thought was going to end differently because I was like, are they really going to capture her as a translator? Is that like what's going on here? Because I that wasn't where I thought that was going, and that felt not that I wanted anything bad to happen to her. Don't misunderstand me. I wasn't wishing it on her. I was saying if this is a development in the movie, it felt very inorganic that that's what they would do. So let me hear you guys' thoughts about that. When she gets captured by the French voyagers, what did you think about that whole thing? How did you think that was going? Let's start with Bracy.
Like I tell you, by the time we got to the Frenchman, I was no longer invested in the film. I was just watching it to finish it for the review. It's disappointing because some things that lead up into this, because we see her just breaking away. You know, they make that poignant thing like, I'm going against the grain, I'm going against the woman. And to their credit, there's actually a few women to look back at her as she's passing, like, you know, what the heck is she doing? Because this just doesn't fit the tribal community at all. And more on that, like at the age she is, she would probably be married and have at least one kid by now. I mean, that's just tribal life at that point. So she's already such an outlier. Again, it would have been nice to have seen some things like, you know, you've turned down like 4 Braves, you know, for marriage. You know, what's wrong with you? Some stuff like that. And we see her interact with the warriors, a grizzly bear, and a predator before we get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And in each case, she's not successful. As a matter of fact, she's, until the very end of the movie, she's not successful at anything other than like being a healer and a tracker. She, you know, until she puts her magic string on her tomahawk, which was ridiculous. Physics doesn't work like that. The weapon's not going to do that. I can't give it to her because one thing that the Predator movies have been so good about is even when you have a phenomenal physical specimen like Arnold Schwarzenegger, they still treat him like a human being. You know, without at least some sort of armament, a human being's never going to have a chance against a predator. And we see that she can sort of handle herself against another member of her tribe, but that guy wasn't really trying to hurt her, you know, and she totally flubs it with the bear. Her, if the predator hadn't come along, she was as good as dead. So, you know, she doesn't work. And by the time we get to later in the film, the part Nemesis mentions when she, you know, she murders like 5 guys at the French camp. I can't believe that. It's like, where did this come from? That's not the same person I've been watching. And when we get to the French camp, I did, in fact, think that we were going to at least allude to something darker. If you saw how the captured squaw was treated in the film The Revenant, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was like, there's a whole bunch of guys going like, you know, we've been alone in the woods a long time, gentlemen. Look at what we caught. You know, so there's that whole aspect, which would have added something a little bit realistic, you know, get a little Game of Thrones in there and added some extra grit and the fact that you're rooting for these guys who eventually get killed as you know they're going to be. So why not give that to us? I'm not saying that like everybody in the, you know, 18th century was a rapist if they're out there in the woods or whatnot. But let's not kid ourselves. Stuff happened. If there's nobody to, you know, keep you within the bounds, or at least like somebody makes that move and, you know, somebody else in the camera, hey, you know, Francois, don't be doing that. So, you know, you could have had some interplay. There was so many missed opportunities to do more interesting things here, and they just don't do it. And I keep waiting for this moment to arrive, and they keep failing to give it to me. As a matter of fact, I thought one of the I thought the guy in the reeds in the tall grass that got killed was her brother because the war paint was obscuring a lot of his face. And I did like seeing that the warriors acted like warriors. You know, they went up against this thing. I found it interesting that the Frenchmen are the ones who call the predator a demon.
Mm-hmm.
But the tribe never references it as a spirit or monster. These are the people who believe in demons and ghosts and spirits. Every blade of grass had a spirit to Native Americans. She looks at the ship and she calls it a thunderbird. You know, why are they like, you know, there's some strange beast in the woods? And it's just like, it's no beast. You know, it's an evil spirit. You know, it's a Nagaloshi. You know, it's a skinwalker. It's something. But no, yeah, again, another opportunity to play into the culture, and they just failed to do so, and that was so aggravating to me. Again, the comic books did it better. They actually did a comic book of the Predator engaging with native tribe here in North America, and they defined it as a witch. You know, their word for witch, because it was this magical being. And you know, as Asimov once said, or maybe it was Arthur C. Clarke, a sufficiently high level of technology will look like magic to a more primitive species. And that's absolutely what this would look like. And just so many things from this point on, it just kept increasing my annoyance, because all of a sudden she's good at one more thing. She literally turns into Rey Skywalker. You know, the dude shows her how to use a gun and she figures it out in one go. Okay, maybe I got a little powder wrong, but I'm going to get it now. She figures out how to use a piece of Predator technology. She figures out how to use the biomask. She figures out all this stuff. And I'm like, where is this coming from? None of this makes any sense. And it just ruined it for me. Like, from that point on, I was just waiting for the movie to get over. And I don't want to watch a movie to wait for it to get over. Honestly, I think that if we hadn't been planning on reviewing this movie, I might have just ended up turning it off, because I was just getting less and less involved as this went forward.
Okay, now the reason I brought that up too, because we're going to go back and talk about the bear, because we have to talk about the bear. But
Yeah.
The reason I brought that up, the reason I jumped ahead, is because I wanted to highlight a moment where she should have been more scared than she was. It's not that she was scared.
And for a moment, I thought she was. I thought it was there, but it never manifested.
Right. When Jeff was talking about, I kept waiting for this moment to happen. Didn't happen. I thought she was going to be way more scared than she was, and so I just brought that up, skipping ahead, because I wanted to show how even at that point, it's still leaning towards the Mary Soonest for me, because of all the things that potentially could have happened in that situation,
Mm-hmm.
but she didn't react like I thought that someone should. Steve, let me hear from you, and then from Nims, and we're going to go back to the bear.
Yeah, I will say up to that point, I was honestly really bored with this movie. I just wasn't invested in anything. I wasn't invested in any characters except the dog and the poor wolf that got killed. Those are the only characters that got me any emotional reaction up to that point. So once we're getting to this, I'm like, okay, well, at least something's happening. The problem is like, I get what you guys are saying, and I get what Jeff is saying about, you know, how people would react in that situation, you know, if they hadn't seen a girl in months. You know, I completely get that. But at the same time, I just got the feeling like, oh, God, you are pushing an anti-colonialist message on me with these French people. Because, of course, you know, the tribes people are great, but the French are totally bad people. And you were talking about the English or something like that, say, okay, that's been a possibility. The problem is that the French historically never did this. They were not like this. They were actually getting along pretty well with the natives. They traded. They had relations. They communicated. You know, are you seriously telling me that there wouldn't have been that one person that would have known how to speak her language, and that they wouldn't have gone at least a reasonable amount of time, and then said, okay, we'll go ahead and let you go. Why don't we team up to stop this thing? You know, something like that is what I would have expected would have happened realistically. But no, we have to have the French people be, you know, horrible colonizers that, you know, butcher these bison and, you know, and take all of their fur and oh yeah, it's like, yeah, we're just going to knock her out because why not? You know, and I just like, no, it took me out, but for a different reason. I'm okay with showing the Comanche side of the situation. I think that's perfectly fine. But don't then at the same time say, well, the French are the bad guys in this situation. No, no, there has to be a middle ground somewhere, and we didn't see it.
That's interesting. That's an interesting perspective. Okay, Nims, what did you think about that whole scene? And then we're going to go back to the Lion and the Bear.
Well, yeah, I agree with Steve. First of all, that it was called the French and Indian War for a reason, because the French and Indians were allied against the English, and the English did have some Native American tribes on their side as well. But as a general rule, the French cooperated with the Native Americans more than the English did. That's one. Two, in this scene, it was revealed that they were Comanche, and at the beginning, we established that they are in the northern Great Plains. That's wrong. It's just wrong. The northern Great Plains are South Dakota, North Dakota. That is Lakota Sioux territory. Maybe Nez Perce, depending where they are. There's various tribes up there, but the Comanche are up down in Oklahoma, southern Kansas, and parts of Texas now. So the Comanche wouldn't have been up there. The Comanche were truly Plains Indians, completely. And if you watch the movie, you know that this whole movie looks like it's in the Black Hills or someplace like that. So it's historically wrong. It's wrong from a Native American perspective. It's wrong from a cultural perspective. It's wrong because the French would not have met them in this way at that time. I don't know where the French expansion was at this time. They might have been there because that area was part of the Louisiana Purchase, but that was almost 110 years after this, or a little more than 100 years. So, historically, it's just all wrong. And I know I'm nitpicking, but I'm sorry. You've got to get these things right when you're doing a movie. I also got part of what Steve was saying. I really did feel this way. And I think this goes back to the point you were making, DT. Am I being overly sensitive because we are force-fed this stuff all the time, 24 hours a day?
All the time.
Yes, I am. I would probably have let it go at another time. But I see this crap now, and immediately my brain goes to they are pushing a narrative, because 99% of the time, they are pushing a narrative.
That's right.
That's not all the time, but 99% of the time, they're doing it for a reason, and the reason is they want to push a narrative of whatever. Put it, whatever the
white man bad, colonialism bad, colonists bad, that all bad, right?
Man and bad, whatever it is. 99% of the time, the stuff is written to push for a reason, not to tell a story. And when you interview them, they don't even try and hide it. So we've gotten so much of that over the last few years that every time I see it now, I just assume that's what it is. And should I do that? Probably not. But I don't think you can blame me for doing that now, because every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, I know why they're doing it. So, that is definitely in there. Now, let me just get to the scene itself. They tie her up and they put her in this wooden cage. First of all, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't understand what they're doing here. If they were tying her up, I think they would either kill her, or they would, in real life, they would either kill her, rape her, or she would be, held prisoner somewhere else, and she would be bound. But why would, they're putting her in these wooden cages for effect. And why are these wooden cages there anyway? It's not like these guys, did they build the wooden cage for them big enough for a human being? It's not like these trappers are capturing live animals. That's not on exhibit anywhere. So that seemed unrealistic, and it seemed deliberately in there to prove a point once again that white man bad. They're putting natives in cages. So I see that. And then, you've got these Frenchmen looking like a bunch of barbarians. I mean, honestly, they came off as a bunch of Neanderthals. They were more savage than anything I could possibly imagine. And then you have the one guy who's, you have the one guy who speaks Comanche and speaks to her, but even he is given short shrift. And then and he seems to be a character who is redeemable. I was expecting that maybe they would do something interesting where this guy who speaks the language, they have some bond or something. No, he's treated as a horrible person and murdered by this female later on. she murders him. I mean, let's call it what it is.
The predator murders him.
Well, yes, but she doesn't do anything to help him. So, you know, and this was a guy who I thought was redeemed, you know, had a lot of redeeming qualities. That seemed to be a kind soul, and you know, and he was the one person in all of that. And I think here was a way for them to at least send some sort of message, like when people communicate, they understand, you know, something. But no,
the whole common enemy principle just thrown out the window.
So, you know, all of it was just absolutely, to me, all I could see in this whole scene was a giant FU to colonialism and white people, and look at how horrible you were, and let's build up this myth of other things, you know. And I say this as a Native American, but man, I am so tired of the myth that all white people were never in touch with nature and butchers of the land, and all Native Americans were completely in touch with nature, and these gentle people that were like completely understanding and held to all of the social mores we have now, and everybody was equal the way that we define equal now. I mean, all of this stuff, they put all of this on the Native American tribes like they were the angelic beings, and it's like, no, they were human beings just like anybody else, with flaws, with social taboos, everything. And this is one more movie that's an example of that. And I think it takes away from what it really meant to be a Native American, because, you know, living that lifestyle, and all the tribes had different lifestyles and different cultures and different social standards and everything else, was interesting. And it makes for interesting reading and studying. And then when you have stuff like this, you're using them. To me, it's disrespectful, because you're using those tribes to push your ideology.
Well, that's why I wanted to jump ahead and talk about this, because we needed some more background in terms of how the movie's painting all the different antagonists. And again, I said at the beginning that we're going to check off stuff in terms of Mary Soonis. And that's another reason I talked about how I'm not sure if my bias is now skewed because of so much agenda forcing, because of so much agenda battling. You can't watch a movie anymore and just kind of like enjoy the movie unless there's none of that in it, which is the whole secret to Top Gun Maverick. But that's another conversation. So
one real quick thing I will say is, one thing that bothers me is that this is specifically references Comanche, but Native American. This is a movie about Native Americans. When Native American societies and cultures and tribes get upset about other things, they're very vocal. No Native American tribal society or activist group or anything complained about this movie with so many inaccuracies and such liberties taken with Native American culture, because it fits their political ideology now. And that you see all the time. And I'm probably going to piss some people off with Native American who, if they watch this, and I get called names all the time because I'm Native American and I don't go along with it. But look, it's like, if we're going to stand up for realism with Native Americans, we need to stand up for it all the time, whether what is being portrayed fits our ideology, our personal ideology, or not. If we're not, we're just a bunch of hypocrites. And I'm calling you, I'm looking you right in the eye. All of you tribes out there that are always bitching and complaining and being activists about certain things. Well, if you're not going to be an activist about this too, you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite.
See, that's the problem with identity politics. That's the problem with situational ethics. That's the problem with selective outrage. Because you're not really standing for something. Because what Nim said is true. If something really bothers you, you're going to stand for it all the time. Context or situation don't have anything to do with it. You stand for what you stand for. But when you stand for it selectively, all that different kind of stuff, then it loses any type of moral or ethical weight because it's not real. So now we're going to go back to, and I just wanted to set the stage some more, which is why I jumped ahead. Now we're going to go back to three things. We're going to go back to the lion and the bear, but first I'm going to talk about the orange flowers. Now, we just mentioned it in passing, and we did think that later on when she gets in the mud that it was going to duplicate the Schwarzenegger scene. But very early in the film, we see the healing with the orange flowers, and later on in the film, we find out that the orange flowers numb your heat signature and
cools your blood, as she puts it.
Cools your blood and then makes you invisible to the infrared sensors. And I'm like, how? So Bracy already brought up how the orange flowers are the Deus Ex Machina.
I'll just say, as somebody with a medical expertise, if your body temperature appears on a thermal scanner to match the background, and you're not, and even like the being covered in mud would not have worked in the context of the first movie. But if your room temperature, you're dead.
Yeah,
Right.
You're metabolically dead.
None of that. It is getting towards winter in this scene, which means if it was snowing and you could see snow hitting the ground, it's at least in the 40s. So if your temperature, your core body temperature is in the 40s, you're corpse.
You're super dead.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's a predator doing where it's cold anyway? I'm still mad about ABP for that.
Right. You're not just dead, you're stupid dead. That's right. And so these flowers throughout the film morph into whatever the plot needs them to be. They have what magical healing powers the plot, needs them to have. And the other thing that got on my nerves was, what's the dosage to have the effect you want? How many of the flowers do you have to eat to heal? How fast does it heal you? Does it have anything to do with body weight and mass? So in other words, I would feed a different amount to the dog, feed a different amount to a teenage girl, feed a different amount to a young man. Does it have anything to do with that? Or is it just you put the flowers in and the healing comes out?
It's funny because they mentioned that, but like she just brushes it aside. It's never brought up again. I thought for sure the guy who lost the leg was going to die. He looked like he was ODing.
Mm-hmm.
Plus his legs just hanging out there, no tourniquet on it, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
So when I saw that just kind of made me like, I'm trying to follow that because I'm like, based on what you guys are saying, even a slight overdose of these flowers will again make you stupid dead. What is it doing? Cool? Is it slowing your blood flow? Is it making you invisible to infrared? Is it cooling your body? Just what is it doing? And how does it know like what to attack? Is it like Wolverine healing flowers? Like we know if there's a virus in your body or if you're missing a limb, or we can kind of diagnose what's wrong with you and give you the exact shot of whatever you need.
I got to speak real quick. Once again, this is feeding into this myth that and this is where I am going to say white people. It's mostly white people that feed this myth. Not all of them, but mostly white people. This myth that everything would be better if we lived the Native American way, and that Western medicine is even evil because out there is this mythical herb that the Native Americans used. They did all. I mean, just start waving that BS flag. It didn't exist.
I kind of feel like rephrasing an Aliens quote. It's mostly white people.
Yeah. If that girl was all cut up like that and fell out of the tree and banged her head and got a concussion and all that, she had a 50-50 chance of dying. She wouldn't have gotten up with some herbs out of that teepee and gone out there and helped. She would have been on the verge of death because she has suffered a serious injury. And yes, they had herbs and stuff that they could use for antibiotics and things like that and had medicinal properties, but nothing like modern pharmaceuticals that we have, and certainly no wonder drug. There were things that they used for antibiotics to a certain extent, but nothing like the antibiotics that we have now.
Most common cause of death before modern medicine was infection.
But it's this myth that we constantly feed that everything was so much better. And if we only went back to the way that they lived back in the day, we'd all live this perfect utopian lifestyle. It's like, would some things be different? Would some things even be better? I think they might be. But a lot of things that we take for granted now would be so much worse. You wouldn't live past 40, probably. That's number one. So
there's a whole, on what you're saying now, there's a whole childbirth issue.
Yeah.
There's a whole development of getting women through the pains of labor and not having the baby kill them for a variety of reasons. A lack of dilation, the baby is breech birth, they've got some type of toxemia. All that is possible to get the mother through that. Now, because of breakthroughs in medical technology. So no, going back to the orange flowers and all that is not the wise thing. But that just, I'm like, again, everything, you don't even have to be a doctor to understand everything's always proportional to height, weight, gender, body mass, how good of a shape you're in, like to begin with. Just so many different things have anything to do with it. And this flower knows once it gets in your body exactly what to do to make you whole. I'm like, okay.
Somebody find that flower immediately.
Right. Immediately. So we're going to jump from that to the lion. Now, all up into the ending, I thought this scene was actually kind of realistic. I really liked that everybody was involved or whatever. But when we get to the end of it, I was like, okay, well, it's realistic that your brother had to do that, and I like that. But it's another place where I thought you should have died. I thought 100% that she was going to die or get more hurt than she was, or I thought there was going to be, I guess I'm saying, more consequences for this kind of thing than we actually saw. And so, not that I didn't understand, kind of what they were doing and everything, but that thing got too close to her and she was too inept with her spear and too shaky on the limb, and the mountain lion's just kind of roaring at her, doing whatever, and then it charges her and she has that convenient fall. And like you said, she should have broken her neck from that fall, or at least could have, but so I just thought she was over. I mean, I know she can't be over because you don't have a movie she was over, but I'm just saying, remember, as we go into this movie, I'm tallying up Mary Sue moments. And I'm like, you should have been dead. You should have lost a limb. You should have lost more blood. You should have. But once again, none of that happens. And your brother saves the day. And I'm like, how are you going to be this big boss babe at the end, proving that you're better than all the boys, when the truth of the matter is, as the movie goes on, your brother's cleaning up behind you. That's the truth of these adventures. And then, sloppy spoilers, your brother sacrifices himself, not on purpose, but he knows that's a possibility. But it's because the men did all that stuff for you that you even get to that point. And because the French colonists didn't do what a lot of men would have done. And see, so my Mary Sue meter is, getting more over into the red as we talk. Okay. Right. So you guys tell me what you think about the lion, then we're going to talk about the bear.
It's worse than all that, but okay.
I'm trying to be fair here, but I don't even know if that's possible anymore. Bracy, tell me about the lion. What do you think about the whole scene with the lion? I'm a mean old lion.
Okay, so I live in the South. I'm not a hunter myself. I have hunted a little bit in my youth with just BB guns. I have done plenty of stalking of animals just to get close to them and get a good look at them. So I know a little something about what goes on, and I do have hunters in my family, and I've heard their stories. And one thing you don't do when you're hunting, especially something that can kill you, is you don't have an argument up in a tree.
Yeah.
That immediately, the rule number one on hunting, and I know you're in a movie and I know you want your exposition, but you can create a great deal more tension if you keep it quiet. And we have seen that the Indians are using hand signs. Who's to say they didn't have their own form of sign language? We could have subtitled some of that. That would have worked. That would have made the scene better. And the silence, knowing that something's out there that can kill you, adds to the tension. But instead, we get a stupid argument, which leads to the stupid guy arguing, getting chewed on by a panther. So, bad on you. And this it immediately makes this plan completely unworkable, because if you're going to be in your hide, I mean, they call them hides for a reason, and you're going to be flapping your gums, then it's not a hide. It's like, hey, Mr. Mountain Lion, I'm over here. Why don't you come say hello to me with your teeth and claws? I'll oblige you on that. And sure enough, that happens. And when she's on the branch leaning away from it, and this is just a bit of a tactical thing, some things I just understand. I would have made my stand with my back against the tree. I would have been on the same branch as the mountain lion, because that is my best possible position. I don't have a tail for balance. I start backing out onto a limb. I am at a serious disadvantage, and I have a thrusting weapon, which means I have to put some body weight and mass and momentum into it. So I'm probably going to fall off this branch one way or the other. A mountain lion is much more capable up here than I am. Two, she keeps backing away, trying to find her moment, because they made a little thing about that, although that never really came back into play. Like with the hawk, finding your moment. She doesn't find her moment, and we've got like maybe 100-pound girl and a 200-pound mountain lion on this branch, and it's going to go down. And we know cats land on their feet really good. How are you going to do? I feel like you're going to have 200 pounds of fangs and claw on top of you. So that whole situation didn't work out so well for me. I was willing to let it go to an extent, because this was a lot of her braggadociousness being put to the test. The test, they say, like, are you, it doesn't matter how sharp your blade is, will you use it when the time comes? And she's just seen one of her comrades get yoinked off the branch and probably killed. So there's that thing. So I was willing to give her some leeway here in the scene. I did like the fact that even when she dived off, I don't know if you guys saw, but she actually struck the mountain lion. She got a spear into its side, maybe into its rear leg, into its haunch, but she did land a blow, and the brother would confirm this later. And she gets knocked out, and it would have been cool to see, like, she gets menaced by the mountain lion, and the brother's able to do something. I would have liked a little bit more show, not tell there. It didn't hurt the way the scene played out in some aspects, but I think it would have been a little bit more impactful if he's like, see, this is why you're not a hunter. Or if he's going to acknowledge the blow, I think it would have been more impressive if he killed it and he goes back home. They get everybody else up and he goes back home to claim the prize. And speaking of which, did the other guy walk out on his own after being mauled by a mountain lion? I mean, like, he lived thanks to your medicine. Oh, I guess brother knows how to apply your medicine, even though you're the medicine woman. Thank goodness for magical orange flowers. Or did brother carry both of them out at the same time? Because I can't imagine leaving one of them behind in the dark woods with a mountain lion or whatever else is out there. So that's part of the scene that was broken for me. It would have been much more interesting if he finishes it off. She awakens to see him finish off, to visually proving his prowess. You failed, I didn't. And then he goes back and claims it. And if she starts to say anything about it, he reminds her of that fact. And then that creates some interesting tension between the characters. Instead, he gave her like this kind of sad, sacky moment, like, you can't go hunting. I had to carry you in. He could have done that in a more meaningful way. And like, maybe he's had enough of her stuff because, like, old boy was distracted up in the tree because you two had to argue, and now he's hurt, and I had to drag your butt home. So there could have been a scene of the brother like, I'm tired of your BS. It's getting people hurt. You're hurting yourself. You're hurting others. You're basically hurting the tribe. Get over it. And then later on, she can raise herself to a level of respect when they have to come together and fight the predator. But it's a significantly missed opportunity. And that's why I wanted to like this movie. I could see all of the potential.
The potential.
There was so much potential here to tell a really good human story between this brother and this sister and the mother and the tribe overall, and they just pissed it in the wind.
All right, Steve, I'm a mean old lion. What about the cowardly lion?
This was the movie where I was just kind of like, half asleep, trying to wait for this to be over, because I just felt like the whole thing was slowly paced. But I think I will say I'm in agreement generally with what you said. So I'm just going to kind of more to the point that she's really winning these fights out of her own house. We're looking to see that she contributes things here and there, and then she kind of takes credit for them. But it's like she's a predator. She didn't really know the mountain lion. She really didn't entirely kill the bear. Like all of these things, it's like, she goes out and tries to hunt them. She picks the fights, and all of this, and yeah, she's, causing problems with the rest of her tribe, in the middle of this, and that causes things to go badly, etc. But it's really more like everybody else contributes more than she does, and then she comes in towards the last minute and goes, "Aha, I got you now," taking advantage of the crew's weapons, the fact that she has she took these little, the terrain. I give her credit for that, and little things here and there. But really, by that point, the predator had already been pretty badly beaten, and I feel it's the same with the mountain lion. I don't really get the sense. Okay, yeah, she came up with some of the ideas about how to trap it. She did hit the thing in the flank or in the shank, etc. But it just seems like it's more like it's dying of all these wounds from other people, and then maybe she delivers like one towards the end, and then suddenly it's her kill. I just don't really get the sense that this is her. I feel like this is her standing atop, the corpses and saying, "Yeah, I survived. It's my kill." I don't really. So yeah, and honestly, I really get the feeling that the mountain lion scene was meant to echo like her relationship with the predator later, and her overcoming the predator later. This was her setback, as you would, and not even a very convincing one. Yeah, I wasn't impressed with this scene. I haven't been really impressed with this whole part of the movie.
Nims, Cowardly Lion.
Yeah, I will say this. You guys hit on most of the good stuff from a story perspective. I did go hunting when I was younger. I have been in a violent outdoor incident with an actual mountain lion. And I will say this: mountain lions only attack for food, or if they're wounded, or they're in a corner and they're cornered and in danger, or defending like their young or something like that. So right off the bat, the very thought that two hunters up in a tree are going to get attacked in this way doesn't seem to be very realistic to me. I mean, the mountain lion would stalk them, but even if he did stalk them for food, once he took that guy off, he would have killed that guy or dragged him away. And that would have been it. It wouldn't have gone after her. It would have killed him, dragged him away, and eaten him. And I have serious doubts that it would have done that anyway. Mountain lions are in the business of surviving. So yelling and screaming and being bigger than it by standing up and all that other stuff tells a mountain lion to get the heck out of there. And the one incident I've been involved in with the mountain lion, I will share that we were a whole platoon, or no, I was in a squad at the time. We were in a whole squad out, and we set up an ambush, and we heard something sneaking through the woods. It was a mountain lion, and we opened up on it with blanks. And you know what that mountain lion did? That mountain lion pissed itself and ran off screaming and scared me to death, and we all pissed ourselves as well. But that was the whole encounter. Everybody pissed themselves, and the mountain lion took off. It was like
I think people think of yeah. I was going to say, I think people think of mountain lions as being the kind from Red Dead Redemption that just insta kill you when you run into it. Nothing to do with the real ones.
Yeah, and what
they certainly can if you don't see them coming.
Yeah,
plenty of bicyclists and hikers have been nailed and killed by mountain lions, but that's an ambush predator doing what an ambush predator does.
Yeah, and it's always a solo. They're never in groups. They're not going to attack someone in groups, and if they don't make the clean kill, they run away. And even if they do take a person down, the minute someone else shows up and the mountain lion realizes it could get injured, it runs away. And the reason they do that, all predators will do that to a certain extent, because predators are in the business of eating and surviving and procreating, so that's not the way they act. And once again, this comes down to, and I hate to say it because I say it all the time, know your damn material, know what you're writing about. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to be at least familiar with what's going on. And if you don't know about these types of things, talk to people who know about these types of things, because this is very basic stuff. Very basic stuff.
Look at the movie The Ghost in the Darkness, which is a movie based on a real event about two male lions that were preying on people trying to build a train, a railroad track through Africa. What did the lions do every time? They found a target, they took it down, they ran away with it. That's what predators do.
Yeah, because if it's attacking you, and the problem I have with this is that this mountain line is being used as a plot device. The writer has I could never say this damn word.
Anthropomorphized.
Anthropomorphized. Yeah.
The lion and turning it into an evil character in order to drive his plot forward. And it's like, look, we're beyond that, especially in this movie where you say you are exhibiting, the realities of this life out there. Well, no, what you're doing is telling a story about an evil mountain lion that was trying to eat people for no good reason. You're telling Jaws. That's what you're doing. You're telling Jaws and making it even worse. It's like, come on now.
I also just want to throw in as an aside, the series can't make its mind up as to whether or not water short circuits the predator armor.
Yeah.
Whether or not, that takes off the Invisil-Cloak or not. Because
that really bothered me in this movie. I mean, like, we should have seen him at least from like the calves up.
Well, in Predator 2, it does, because the sprinkler system kicks on and he can't turn invisible. And he tries a couple of times and it just doesn't work.
Because he even like in Predator 2, he even walks through some puddles and we see his feet when he's faces off against King Willie, the pimp, or the drug dealer.
That's right. And then here he's walking just straight up in water and there's a little sizzle, a reaction or whatever, but then Invisil-Cloak stays on. So might want to make up their minds. So next I want to talk about the bear.
The bears. Had to do it.
Now, when it comes to this whole bear thing, especially when it did the trope of the animal is going to get trapped, or the monster, the predator, is going to get trapped in some type of makeshift wood trap, or it can't bite its way through, or it can't get its head through, or it slows it down just long enough for you to do what it needs to do, what you need to do to survive the whole thing. And I'm like, I understood maybe what they were going for here, but all I came away from that scene with was feeling like, once again, you should have died. I thought, and again, I know she can't die because we don't have a movie, she doesn't. But then again, the way she gets out of the quicksand, that was another one where I felt like because it's like this. She basically gets as many chances as she needs to survive or win. That's what I'm trying to illustrate with these examples.
With plot armor.
Right. That's what the quicksand felt like to me, because like if somebody else had been caught in that, I'm glad you didn't flail and thrash and all that, but you still got to throw your tomahawk rope until you got it right. You got as many chances as you need. And that's the same thing that happened in the scene with the bear.
See, I so thought like she was going to go all the way under and have to pull herself out, finally succeed, and then she'd have been covered head to toe in the mud, and then the predator wouldn't have seen her, because we've established that in previous continuity that the mud blocks your heat signature.
Right. And also, bringing up that word continuity, that's been another point of controversy for some reason for the past 6 or 7 years, where we've even had people in charge of IPs saying that canon is whatever you think it is. And we've now moved into the make your own canon thing, and we're not going to stick to anything. I'm like, y'all do realize that means that the stories have no meaning if there's no continuity, if there's no canon, if there's no framework that we continue to operate in. But anyway, so when I see her up against the bear, this kind of funny, goofy CGI bear, which sometimes look real and sometimes look like a funny, goofy CGI bear, I was like, okay. But once again, you're going to get as many chances as you need, however the movie gives them to you, to win or flee or just not die. And the reason, again, I brought up both the lion and the bear is I want you to notice her lack of damage. I want you to notice that as she gets through these deadly encounters, like Nims was just talking about how he ran into a mountain lion for real and they had weapons, but it was still kind of, shaky, and the mountain lion was shaky and they were shaking all that. But I want you to notice the stuff she goes through, and I want you to notice her lack of damage. See, once again, that Mary Sue needle, I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, but that Mary Sue needle keep dipping over into the red, because I'm like, if you're King David from the Bible, then I believe you slew a lion and a bear with your bare hands because you were anointed to do so. Okay. But And that wouldn't have been the first time you did all that. But in this situation, I'm like, I at least want to see some real damage from these encounters.
Yeah, that bothered me too. What do we see? We see a split lip. We see her treating a long scratch on her shin bone, and of course, looking at where the bear trap caught her leg. That's all she gets.
She should have lost her leg with some of these traps.
Yeah.
And like you said, she couldn't hit the bear at point blank range, but we're going to be asked to believe later.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait to talk about the bear.
She could take the predator out, right. So she can't hit the bear. And this is another one where I swore the dog was gone. That bear gets all the way up on top of both of them at the top of the mountain, and then the bear turns from hunting her to go after the dog. I thought the dog was gone. She already flubbed her arrow shot, and she had the thing dead to rights, and the bear didn't sense her yet. Bear didn't smell her or sense her yet. And I'm like, okay, so once again, you know, that needle, that Mary Sue needle, I'm trying, but, and then, like I said a few minutes ago, did just a total lack of damage from this whole thing. And I'm like, that dog should have been gone. That dog should have been gone. That dog should have been gone. How many chances are you going to get to kill this bear? How long would it take for it to actually overtake you, just in terms of the speed of its gallop?
This could be a fun drinking game. Every time she and the dog survives, we take a shot and see who ends up having the most plot armor.
Once again,
that's about almost as bad as watching House of the Dragon and taking a shot every time somebody says Iron Throne.
So she dives underwater, and she comes up underneath her.
She's in the beaver dam.
Or beaver dam, her right, and the branch trap or whatever. Somehow the bear gets through and roars, and once again is just inches away from her. And you know what she's doing? She's screaming because she realizes that, you know, it's about to be over. And this time the predator saves her. And she gets a good look at the thing, at least with the invisible cloak on at first, while it's trouncing the bear. But, you know, she's seeing what's really going on. And I'm like, well, isn't that convenient? What would you have done if the predator had been 5 minutes late? If the predator showed up on the scene, you would have been kibbles and bits.
I'll also add the CGI for the predator being invisible going through the water is really bad. And I will say, compared to the practical effects done 30, 40 years ago, it is nowhere near as good.
I will say, though, that the fight between the bear and the predator was probably the best fight in the whole movie for me. So
yeah, I'm calling extreme bullshit on that, and I'll explain that in my turn.
Okay.
Well, you know, again, I'll conclude mine, then I'll throw it out to you guys. I thought that, once again, it was just another example of her getting whatever chances she needed, because the predator wouldn't have let her escape either, because the predator clearly spies her through the infrared as she's swimming away. And she wouldn't have been able to get away. The original predator that fought Dutch and them wouldn't have let that happen. And so I'm just like, once again, so it was just another scene of, you're going to get as many chances as you need to make it through to the end. And that is plot armor, that's main character powers. And like I said, my Mary Sue needle is over here in the red, because you shouldn't have survived either one of those, let alone the lion, the bear, and the predator. Okay, so let me throw it out to you guys. Bracy, definitely want to hear what you have to say. So give us your take on the bear.
Yeah. First problem I have is how the bear reacts, because animals don't act like animals here. Animals act like monsters. Bear smells her. Bear immediately becomes aggressive. Bear doesn't care. It's got hundreds of pounds of caribou meat sitting down there that it's munching on. As long as you don't go down there and get in its face, and like the Bill Burr, did you poke it? Did you try and pet it? Did you mess with it? Bear doesn't care. It's got precisely what it wants. It's another predatory thing. You see hyenas all around a lion eating a kill, and then they're like, there's a distance, and if we cross that line, it's like the old Saddam Hussein, like cross this line of death, or not Saddam Hussein, but like a Muammar Gaddafi, that sort of thing. So a predator will tolerate you up to a certain point, and just because it smelled her, it would have been aware, it would have noticed, but it was like, all right, like I might decide to drag this off elsewhere, I'm going to eat because I am a bear. I don't give a crap.
Because I am a bear.
I am a bear, and I'm not just a bear. I'm a North American grizzly bear. So I am, depending on how big I am between 7 and 9 feet tall. I'm between 800 and 1,500 pounds if I'm as big as old Bart the Bear 1. Just a behemoth of a creature. This one looks like it might have been in the 900 pound range, given what we see later.
You are the apex predator, though.
Yeah, you are the apex predator. That hump of muscle on their back. I've seen videos of grizzly bears turning over 300-pound boulders to look for things to eat, tearing the doors off of cars. They break into any cabin they want to get into. They topple dumpsters. Very doggone little is going to stop a bear. A bear can literally knock your head off of your shoulders with a paw swipe. They are not to be messed with. And she has a bow and an arrow. It's dicey to shoot at a bear at that range with a 30-30. You better be sure.
Better be sure.
You better be sure. And she's going to hit you with a pointy stick.
I'll give you one guess what I'm doing if I see a bear that close.
Yeah, I am quietly creeping my butt away.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And you have that option with a grizzly bear. A grizzly bear is not as predatorily carnivorous as a black bear. Black bear, you need to make noise and look big and back away making a lot of noise and let them like, hey, you stay over there, Mr. Bear. Different bears have different things you need to do. Polar bear, just run. Just run. They are after you. They are pure carnivores. Don't even mess with them. So here we have this nonsensical thing. She wouldn't have pulled her bow on the bear. She had been trying to lay low, and then when it comes at her, your string breaks. Guess what? You just take off. Let the dog run interference. That's what the dog does. The dog does its job. And when the dog leads it off, the dog's faster than the bear. It's going to get away. It's cool. Dog's got it. Bears, I've seen bears run down prey because bears are marathoners versus speedsters. The deer is faster, but the deer flags out quick. Deers are sprinters, and the bear catches up. Eventually, the bear just catches up. It's same thing like humans. Humans, we're good at running long distances, not great speed. This is how we catch up to things. Dog's got an advantage. It's got speed and endurance, so it's got it. It's cool. But no, when the dog comes back, and I noticed he didn't come back to take on the doggone bear, the predator, when she was in real danger. She tries to shoot the stupid bear instead of hauling ass up a tree. Man, come on! I cannot at this point. I cannot believe she is an Indian because she doesn't know any Indian things. I feel like she's like she's like a Sam Worthington's character in like an Avatar. I want this blue lady to come out and just point at her like, you know nothing. You are like a baby. Just admonish her for not knowing the ways of nature. But no, like the only smart thing she did was like she took some refuge in the beaver dam, which I thought was actually pretty clever, because you're not going to outrun this thing at all. It's faster than you, but there's no way the beaver dam protects you for more than just a moment. Maybe you fake it out, you get on the other side when it gets invested in digging in there looking for you, and try and flee that way. That's kind of what I was expecting. Or if I really expected her, she fired her arrow in self-defense. She turns and runs. Looks like the bear is going to get her, and that's when the predator hits it. And so that was kind of expected. Again, it's Mary Sue / plot armor. She gets saved. She's not earning anything, unfortunately. The predator comes in, and I have a problem with the predator going hand to hand without his bloody claws. I never saw him pop his claws on this thing. No, sorry. Predator loses this fight. If he's going toe-to-toe, hand-to-hand with a bear, you better have them claws out. Predators aren't stupid. Have you noticed they hunt everything with every advantage they can get?
Yes.
Until they're pretty sure. There's like, what, every now and then I'll do a little one-on-one. But the predator's not really expecting to lose. They're either cloaked, or they're using plasma blasts, or they're using, tracker darts, the catch nets, the combi stick, their freaking claws, all this stuff. But no, this predator decides to slug it out with 900 pounds of bear, which probably outweighs the predator by a factor of 2. And I've already explained how ridiculously powerful bears are. As strong as predators are, I don't think a predator could hoist a grizzly bear up over its head like that. I didn't buy that at all. I really thought this would have been a much cooler fight if we just kind of ignore the wolf fight. This should have gone a little bit more like the wolf fight. There's some sticking and moving, and it should have looked more like how the Indians were fighting the predator. The Indians were using their speed and their agility, and I really love that about the fight choreography. The predator was large and powerful, but just a little bit slower than the natives, and they're able to stick and move and get in there, and they were actually able to do some wounding. They looked like a credible threat. They looked like a proper thing that this creature would want to hunt. And I would have liked to have seen something like that with the bear, because predators do go after things that are arguably more dangerous than them at times. The xenomorphs are clearly, on a pure physical level, far more dangerous than the predator. They're armored, they're loaded with weaponry, and predator don't take them just bare knuckle fighting. I don't think they would do that with a grizzly bear either, with its freaking 4-inch claws and its skull crushing jaws. It just doesn't happen. And and the fact that he seems to have won with a KO. What did he? The bear gets him down and chews on him, and the bear that's been aggravated by you, that you've proven yourself a threat. Bears only quit when they think you're dead, or they're. And if a bear doesn't kill you, it's gonna break your arms and legs to make sure that you're not a threat. That's just what they do. When they tell you to curl up and protect your neck, that's just so that you'll live, but you're going to get jacked up bad. So that bear wouldn't have stopped until it was sure. If the predator gets bundled up under the bear, the predator better fire something through it, because he's toast otherwise. And I noticed this predator's not carrying a plasma caster. He's trying to be a little bit more sporting. The Indians have got their arrows. Okay, I got my little arrows on my gauntlet. I'll play that way. But he should have fired a bunch of them up through this thing's body and then spiked him in the skull. I would have bought that fight. Predator doesn't win this fight. Just didn't happen.
All right, Nim's rebuttal. Lions, predators, and bears on my.
Well, let me skip to the bear fight real quick, and I'm going to go backwards. I don't think it's real clear how strong predators are, although I think it is clear that this predator was kind of last in hunter class, So wherever baby predators grow up, he was one of the last of the class there. So
Junior
much so,
woodchuck predator.
Yeah, he was.
We've seen them smash through an apartment wall with ease, which a grizzly bear could also do.
And in Alien versus Predator, he held up a alien queen, with the chain, So
yeah, I didn't buy that one either.
So,
sorry, it's just too much math.
Okay, so either way, and I don't think it's clear whether or not it used its claws. I thought, because we don't see the fight really. I mean, the fight, that is one of the.
I was looking for claws now.
Yeah, but I saw that the bear was disemboweled, because when he held it up over its head, everything spilled down onto.
I think he disemboweled him at the end, though.
I think I think this is a nerd fight that we don't have, because everything else before it is implausible.
Yeah, because when you see the blow that snaps the bear's head aside, you don't see any soft tissue damage. You don't see any bleeding. You don't see any flaps of skin. So I don't know. Difference of opinion.
What I will say is that I 100% agree once again with this bear not acting like a bear or a bar. Let's say it's not acting like a bar.
Killed a bar.
This bear, as Jeff so rightly pointed out, so we've already established that we're getting on towards winter. The number one thing a bear wants to do going on towards winter is fatten itself up for hibernation. I'm assuming that this is a male bear. I didn't see its parts. I respect its privacy, but I'm assuming it's a male bear. There's no cubs or anything there, and the level of ferocity of the bear, it would, minus cubs, is probably male. But
it never stated its pronouns.
Yeah, but either way, the bear is eating, like Jeff said, is eating something. Even if she pokes her head up, the minute that he chases her away far enough, he's going back to his kill. Why? Because if he does go back to his kill, some other bear or other predator is going to come along and steal his kill. And the only thing he cares about is eating his food. So he'll chase her away, go back, get the food, and take it somewhere else and eat it. Because his priority at that point is not killing her. She didn't do anything to him. She's not a threat to him. It's protecting his kill. That's all he cares about. So It doesn't make any sense. And once again, it doesn't take a rocket scientist or a zoologist to understand animal behavior. And say it over and over again. I said it just a few minutes ago. Understand what you're writing. You don't have to be an expert. But if you don't know the basics, find someone who knows the basics so that you can write it so it's believable. Otherwise, the whole thing just falls apart. There were ways to do this where you could have had a bear attack her that made sense. My God, just put some cubs in there. Or make the bear cornered. You corner a bear, then you're in trouble because the bear's going to feel. Yeah, you surprise a bear because the bear's going to feel threatened. And Jeff's point about her being Native American, the minute you poked your head up over there and you saw a bear eating something, you poke your head back down and you go your own merry way.
Right.
You wouldn't sit there looking. Yeah, you wouldn't prepare a shot. You wouldn't be looking at the bear. You wouldn't be sightseeing. You'd be like, hey, Mr. Bear, especially if you're living in harmony with nature, you're like, you do your thing, bear. I'm going to go over here and do my thing. And everybody lives.
Mind if I add something real quick? I just thought about something with you saying that. Everything we see her do in this film proves she's not a hunter.
Yeah.
She takes aim on a bear. She tries to hunt rabbits with hatchets. Everything says like all your tribe is right. You're not a hunter.
Not only that, your chances of killing a bear with one arrow are almost zero. They're not zero. If you get lucky and you put an arrow through its eye, you might kill it.
Catch an eye or the carotid artery or something. But
yeah.
The needle, and the scene that's going to push the needle all the way from me is the next scene after this one. Go ahead, Steve. Bear down.
Yeah, this whole thing with the bear. I guess you guys all cover the animal behavior thing. I will say, like, once again, it's another situation where this guy thinks that animals behave like video game animals and they act like they do in Red Dead Redemption, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, yeah, the minute that you have a problem with your bowstring and you look at this bear, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna hightail it out just quietly. I'm just gonna do the Homer Simpson thing and disappear in the foliage. Yeah, goodbye. And it's just like, yeah, I just don't buy that. And it's like, in addition, like, she was fairly high up. It's like at that point, it's like, yeah, the bear probably is like, is it worth it to go up there and potentially lose my kill just to go after this annoying small human that really doesn't even taste very good? No, not really. I'm just going to take my kill and go over this way down the river. I mean, why wouldn't he do that? It's so stupid. And then, the whole thing with the predator, who I'm referring to as the junior woodchuck predator, because he is just, compared to other predators we've seen, this guy is not competent. He is not very good. He is like the Naru of hunters, basically.
Yeah.
He's trying to prove that he's a hunter, but it's like, okay, what are you proving yourself against? Little wolves. You're picking a fight with this bear that's huger than you when you have all these weapons that you could take him down from a distance. And it would be honorable to do that because this is a very big kill. You're not setting this thing up. It's more, oh, yeah, the bear's distracted trying to kill this human, and I'm just going to go behind him and kill him. Even though you're in water and you can see me, because my cloaking device doesn't work in water. Like, why would you do that? The wolf predator from A versus P2 would not have done that. Like, he would have done Batman type stuff. This predator, junior woodchuck predator, I mean, just it's like he thinks that just because he's on this planet with a bunch of primitives, that he can just go and kill anything. It's no big deal. And it's like, a smarter predator would not behave like this. This guy's got to be a kid, who's just got out of predator training school, and he's trying his luck against the locals. And
Daddy must have gave him a special cloak, because why does his 300-year-old cloak work better than cloaks in 2022?
Yeah, they didn't think about that either. Like, how would predator technology have been different like 300 years before the events of the first movie? Yeah, that's complete nonsense too.
That's why I don't like prequels, because they always forget stuff like that.
He brought back a rattlesnake skull as a trophy. I'm like, what?
It's like, he killed a wolf. Oh, big tough guy. Yeah, it's just no. I mean, I just feel like the one thing that the Predator and Naru have in common is that they both want to prove how bad they want to be hunters, and yet neither of them are nearly as good as people that we have seen in their tribes previous to this.
Neither one of them are actual hunters. So what happens right after
You know what I just
deadlift, the WWE deadlift of the bear with the guts pouring out, is she gets into a fight surrounded by the 6 boys, and she's able to fend them off and hold her own and break noses or whatever. Then the boys go up against the Predator. The Predator takes each one of them out in less than 30 seconds. So she can fight or whatever, hold them off or do whatever. And then the Predator proves that all those boys are no match for him because he takes them all out in less than half a minute each. So that means that when it's finally time for him to fight her, it should take him 10 to 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But juxtaposing the idea if she's able to fight all these boys that are better than her and they don't get the upper hand, and they do kind of get it at the end, but it's trying to show that she could hold her own. And then it shows in the very next scene that the Predator takes him out very, very quickly and easily. So someone that weighs less and someone that is still trying to prove himself a hunter and someone that wouldn't know what all those boys knew. So once again, needle tipping. Okay, so, I'm amazed actually, because you guys have said it a couple of times and now I have to echo the sentiment. I really wanted to like this film. Going into it, I wanted to like it, but one of the criticisms has been, that it wasn't what you liked or wasn't what you wanted. You can't please fans, whatever. But I'm like, no, I just wanted a really good story that made sense in the setting. And too many things have happened against nature, against hunting, against Indians, against geography, against biology to after a while, because I keep trying to tell people your brain will subconsciously kick stuff out. Even if you don't consciously know all the details, when your brain sees something that's like, nope, then it just kicks it out. And so again, juxtaposing the fight where she's bad enough to deal with, all her brother's friends, that kind of thing. And then the Predator takes them out like they're nothing. They're trying to use the transitive property that A equals B and B equals C, so therefore A equals C. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not buying that either, but I recognize the setup for what it was. And also the Predator sees her and lets her run away. The Predator also uses the triangle targeting when she runs into her brother and when she runs into other people. And so if you want to make the argument that the Predator is toying with them, maybe, but the Predator catches up with them as they're running through the field and catches up with the dude without a problem. So once again, that kind of felt like the Jurassic Park 2 scene when the Raptors are taking everybody down in the open grass. So I'm like, with the speed that the Predator actually catches up with them and all that different kind of stuff, once again, there's no way she should have gotten away. There's no way she gets out of that. And then she gets caught in the bear trap. Leg in the bear trap, bleeding, whatever. I'm like, why are you not dead? Because the Predator doesn't even need to come upon you now. Because as we've been saying all review long, unfortunately, there's no plasma cannon. Okay. And then, but you do have the triangle laser targeting. So I'm saying the first movie Predator would have been blow this girl's head off. And that's when we get the intervention of, the French hunters. And I didn't understand why at that moment the Predator didn't take them all out too. Because that's what he would have done. It's not like 4 dudes with weapons wouldn't have been clocked as a threat, because obviously the Predator knows what pistols are. And so he lets that happen after, pulling the chain to get to the girl or whatever. Then he lets the 4 hunters come up, and that dips over into what Limbs was talking about how that's where we get into the anti-colonialism message. And then, she has to, of course, rise up with her womanly vengeance and make sure that those white men get what's coming to them. And I'm like, okay. So moving forward, her and her brother, after all that other stuff we talked about, her and her brother are out there chained to the tree. And that's where he gives his big speech about, this is it, end of the line, no further. And you knew that was going to be his epitaph as soon as he said it. And so the French hunters have surrounded the Predator, and they flanked him, and they're very interestingly, I saw that they were at different distances from him. I really like that. I
Yeah.
thought that was a nice strategy that they weren't all the same distance, which, gives chances for different weapons, different approaches. And then one of them he kills with something like a Japanese folding fan, except it's made out of metal.
Yeah, it's like a shield.
Right,
that
right.
Starts out as a plate and it fans out into a shield.
Right. But the way it unfolds reminded me very much of that Japanese folding fan. And so these guys, again, are no match for him.
That actually reminded me very much of a Zulu shield, so that they would wield with a spear. So that's kind of what I got from it. But yeah, I agree with both of you. Just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in there.
I mean, that's one thing that's always fun is to see the new Predator technology.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's right. That's actually one of the fun points, and that's one of the things that the audience comes to see is what kind of tech does this thing have now that we haven't seen before. And so then it uses that shield like a Captain America shield. And I'm like, okay. Y'all do realize that if they had that tech back in 1719, that every Predator after that should have had that, right?
Not necessarily.
Mhm.
Well, I would think they would.
I mean, I haven't seen every Predator use a combi stick. Not every Predator uses a wrist launcher. So I'm cool with them using different things. Like different hunters have different approaches.
The thing that got me about the whole shield and all that, they established that both the shield and his head plate, which was shaped like a skull, were bulletproof. Okay, that's fine. You want to establish that. But why are all the people, especially after they see stuff bouncing off?
Why are they shooting at his legs?
Yeah, why aren't they shooting at the exposed parts? Because all he's doing is sitting there like this, and that shield covers this quadrant of his body up here.
Not a big
and his
shield.
head. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of other stuff to shoot at, and he's just standing there like, come on, shoot at my shield. And they're all like obliging, going, I'm going to shoot the shield.
It's the same argument we had for the Mandalorian when all he had was the Beskar helmet, and people would catch him in that one pauldron.
Yeah.
And so then the Predator is using his monkey branch powers because he's so fast. He's monkey branching, and then he sets a booby trap for all these boobies, and basically arms his gun with I guess a Predator equivalent of a bouncing Betty. At least that's what it felt like to me. And I was like, okay. And they stood there and looked at it until it went off. And I'm like, y'all don't know that if something is glowing red and floating, that maybe it's time to break out of that. But anyway, so then she goes back and wreaks her vengeance on the camp. Of course she does. And the Predator is licking its wounds, its little green-blooded wounds. And I like what you guys said earlier about by the time she gets to it, it's clearly battle damaged.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yep.
And so, okay, so then, so we all know what's going to happen. We all know that it has to have a climactic fight. And once again, the dog charges it and it gets the dog right in its sight. And I could have sworn the dog was gone. So that's when the brother comes.
The third time.
Right. So the dog had main character powers too. So that's when the brother comes out and knocks the helmet off while the targeting laser was sighting the dog, knocks the helmet off. And then we see this thing's face. And I don't know what kind of predator that was, because was that like, a predator from like Planet Uglier?
Yeah, I really want to get into some of this predator stuff.
Yeah. And so, okay, let's stop right there and we'll make that point, Jeff. So even when I looked at the Predalien, which I still think was a better idea on paper than it was in execution, when we see this thing, I'm like, are we saying it's a less evolved member of the Predators? Is it something that evolves later into what we see in the 1987 film, what we see in the 1990 film? I wasn't sure what they were going for with that kind of look. So, Jeff, why don't you chime in there, because you are our resident monster expert.
Indeed. So, predators turning skulls into their biohelmets is not something new in the expanded lore of the Predator. Particularly if you've captured or if you killed something with a large enough skull and it was a really ferocious kind of fight, it's another way of honorific. It's another type of honorific. You see they like to decorate their body nets with skulls and rib cages and spines and things like that. So there's that. My first and biggest problem upon seeing this is it didn't cover the full face. And we know from previous lore, from previous movies, that the predators are, their atmosphere is different than ours. They can breathe it for a time, but I imagine it would be like as if one of us went to live in the mountains for a while, and we would have altitude sickness for a time because you've got to adapt to that atmosphere. We even see like whenever a predator takes off its helmet, there's little gases escape. We saw when the Predator in Predator 2 lost his helmet, he pulled out a face mask to get some good lungfuls of his atmosphere so he could keep running to his ship since he was in dire straits. So there's definitely something missing in our atmosphere that they need to subsidize within their own chemical mixture, whatever they're breathing, or the mask filters more of what they need. So when I see his jaw hang out and his mandibles and his face when he finally loses the helm, even before that, like the FX guy's structure in his face, he had much more of a muzzle than I'd seen on any previous Predator. And I'm not opposed to different designs. The Predator 2 doesn't look like Predator 1. Robert Rodriguez introduced us to the race war of predators, the Predator versus the Super Predator, if you will, because they were bigger, stronger, had slightly better technology, more ferocious mandibles. To me, even the Alien versus Predator, the Pred Alien, my only big problem with that thing was the dreadlocks looked a little wonky. I would have done them differently if I was designing the creature. But I looked at this thing from an artistic and creature design perspective, and I wasn't looking at a predator. This thing was like, if I was going to do to this design, I would have had it hunting cavemen. I would have had it way, way back.
Okay.
Because it looks devolved. It looks demonic. It looks like a monster. It doesn't look like an alien creature.
Right.
I don't know what it looks like, but it doesn't look like a predator.
Doesn't look like a predator. That's
the
right.
structure, the facial structure is all wrong. And again, it's like somebody's idea of like, it's like the Jurassic Park idea when they create the Indominus Rex. They said, you kept telling us you want us bigger, meaner, scarier, more teeth. That's what this predator feels like. It feels like a predator designed by a committee instead of somebody looking at what's gone before and trying to figure out what's a cool evolution. I did like the change of skin tones, showing that predators have different lineages, different marks, even different. I even like the skinny dreads. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. We haven't seen skinny dreads before, so there's a variation we haven't seen that doesn't kind of break the physiology that we're used to. But this just totally ruins it. It was, I guess it is from a design perspective, it was ugly, and it's not just ugly in the way we're meant to see. You're one ugly MFer. No, this thing was just ugly. It was a very poorly executed design, and it just made me wish he just kept the mask on the whole time, even though it didn't fit his face for whatever reason. Because that's got to look cool. It doesn't have to make any sort of sense. And they completely ignore the fact that these movies, these IPs have fans, longtime fans, fans who have been there from the first movie forward. And we're going to see things. We're going to pay attention to things. Don't ignore us. We have expectations, just as people maybe have only seen one of these movies. As soon as you've seen one of these movies, you have an expectation. You can do new things, but you have to work within that context. You have to realize that's what's going on there. So that was really unfortunate. They called this predator the feral predator. Again, I actually thought for a moment when I first saw the design online, I saw the skull on the helmet. I didn't think he had a biomass. Here's what I thought they were going to do. I thought this was a predator criminal, and they just dumped him off on Earth because he'd broken some taboo. Maybe he'd hunted another predator. And I thought it was really going to be like a really one-on-one sort of situation where here's a predator. He's on Earth. He's got no tech, and he's having to deal with the natives on a much more even basis by taking stuff from land and creating his own weapons and tools and figuring out okay, what can I use to heal myself? That would have been a cool tie-in with her. Like he discovers the magic orange flower. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. Does this work with my biochemistry? Oh, good. It's a magic orange flower. Yeah, it works on me too. There were so many things you could have done with that, but they just ruin it. And it's too bad because the new Predator toys were really, really cool. I like the little shield, even if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, obviously he understands that people have muskets now, and you want to, deflect muskets. And Predator skin is pretty tough, but it's not that tough. Uh, I liked it. He's got the combi stick. I like seeing the razor net come back into play. That was really cool. Even the things that amputate limbs, that was pretty crazy. He was kitted out like somewhere between Batman, James Bond, and Tony Stark. Man, like he had gadgets for days. I think they overdid it. I like it better when the Predators have a few kind of favorite gadgets. But again, this is an idea where like, what would be really cool? Let's give them more. Yeah, but let's give them more, and then take away some of what we've already seen. So this guy had too many weird gadgets, too many things. It becomes too much to keep track of. And then even within this context of this high sci-fi technology, some things still need to make sense. Like when I'm watching the arrow bolts that get launched out of this gauntlet, I couldn't figure out because they're only as wide as like a typical modern day arrow or crossbow bolt. I was like, well, how does that have homing technology based off the biohelmet? Because like when you got the biohelmet, I really felt like that's just his laser target. Like, hey, okay, I can line up my shot like that. I've got my trajectory figured out, but that shouldn't have had the bolts fly around and eventually kill the Predator. I thought that was weird and way too convenient and dumb as him slicing off his own arm. So I just, it could have done a little bit less, and I really wish they had done something far, far better with the creature design.
All right, so let's move on so we can wrap this up. So I agree with whoever said that her brother basically tenderizes the Predator.
Yeah.
And basically gashes him, gives her lots of wounds, and then she has to get her revenge on the fat white dude. So of course his limbs are missing. So she puts him on the ground, and the rats are chewing up his amputated limbs, which was gross. And so then that's when she's used her magic flowers. The Predator literally walks right by her.
And nobody bleeds out from amputated limbs in this movie.
and kills that dude. Kills the Jack Black of the French. And so the French conquistadors, so she's all there on blood and Viso power because now the Predator can't perceive her at all. So she uses a bunch of from behind him blows. First she shoots him twice and shoots the helmet off, grabs the helmet. Then she leaps off of a tree limb and cuts him down. And once again, Predator's about to take her out. And once again, here comes Crypto. And Crypto, once again, distracts him long enough for her to get away and do what she's doing. So Predator's bleeding all out, all this different kind of stuff. And she's now somehow able to move through the trees and the tree camouflage and the tree situation. So even though he's monkey branching 3 or 4 times faster than she's moving, she's able to dodge and avoid him. And then again, the arm comes off with the Captain America, Japanese fan shield. And so then it's almost like she's, I don't know. I won't say that she's taunting him because that's a little too far, but it does feel like she's proving with their hand to hand that I got you, you're not going to beat me. And I mean, if I wasn't lost completely by that point, I'm like, how is this girl going toe to toe, even if this thing only has one arm? We've seen him deadlift a bear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen him have her in his sights more than once and not do it. And then finally, when he corners her and gets her down and he's got the fan shield pressing against her neck, he does the monster trope of all time. He's been cutting people's heads off quickly for the last 2 hours, but when it's her turn, he goes slowly. Now, I know he's cutting through the tree. I get that. I know he's trying to get to the flesh of her neck. I get it, but still. So this is, she once again is going to get as many chances as she needs to win. And so apparently is Crypto, the super dog. So then they're doing the final thing. And just as an aside, she has to have some Jean Grey telekinetic power, some Dr. Dolittle power, the way she talks to the dog. Because the dog doesn't just understand commands. The dog understands hunting moves.
Yeah.
And the dog understands like when to run, how to run, and exactly what to do to put the predator in the position she needs him in, which I thought was, are you controlling that dog with your mind? You know, okay. So if they wanted us to buy that this little girl is going toe-to-toe with this thing that deadlifted a bear, even one-handed, again, he just doesn't kill her. He just doesn't finish her. Not she beats him. He just doesn't kill her with, the 10th chance in the movie he has to end her. He just doesn't.
Mm-hmm. I'll point out one thing while you're doing that, and that is the ultimate weapon of the Predator was not used in this movie. He did not try to pull a tactical nuke with his wrist weapon, like we saw in the first Predator and like we have seen in other later Predator films. Did not happen. So that's another bit of plot armor she gets.
Well, he didn't have it.
Well,
His wrist weapon was used to do the little
The
bouncing Betty
bouncing
Boop
Betty.
trick.
for some reason,
Yeah, they did the
for some
bounty
reason,
Betty,
he got
but
rid of
like
his
there was no fail-safe weapon. In other words,
Right,
Yeah.
right. No fail safe and nothing. No, nothing was exploded.
And what
And this-
Predator throws away his last-ditch save my honor weapon?
So finally, he's in the quicksand, and finally he's one-armed. He's bleeding out all over creation. And this is another thing where it becomes a Joker plot. When I say Joker, I mean Joker from Dark Knight, because everything has to happen exactly the way it happens for this conclusion. And so basically the targeting gun is going. He finally shoots the short spear, but somehow doesn't recognize, doesn't know, doesn't remember, doesn't discern, whatever, that his targeting laser is still on his helmet or whatever. And so the spear is actually going to go to where that is. So it misses her, arcs around, and because the target laser was on him, come back, and it kills him. Then she screams. Then she walks back to her village, drops off his head, like it's her kill, when her brother did everything to tenderize that predator meat, and when the predator did everything not to kill her with the number of times he could, and she walks in triumphant with the fluorescent green paint. And now basically it's the now you all have to take me seriously scene. And that was the final nail for me. I was like, it's another one of those born on third base, think you hit a triple situations, to where you are surviving because of main character powers. You're surviving because your brother tenderized this thing. You're surviving because this thing is really clumsy and inept. And hear me out, doesn't know its own weaponry. Once the movie asks you to accept that that's how she beats it, I'm like, well, any type of credibility at that point was gone for me, because the whole premise of the Predator movies is this thing's intimate knowledge of every level of its advanced weaponry, and that's the advantage that it uses to take us out with. But this little girl beats it at its own game.
And let me ask this. How does she understand how to use the limb severer? How does she understand how to turn on the lasers on the biohelmet? That's Mary Sue to the max. So she just figures out how to use alien technology.
I don't think she turned on the lasers. I think when he went to aim it, the lasers came on automatically, but still.
So it was still on the whole time?
Yeah, well, no, it came on when he put made the weapon active. But the whole concept is ridiculous.
Yeah, but it was on.
How could she trust that it was going to work, though?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like I know that if I hadn't already been out of the film, just her figuring out the alien technology just drove me completely out of it.
Right. See, so that's right up there for me as Lex Luthor walking into Superman's fortress, putting his hands on the crystals responding, and the crystals answering all his questions, and then never letting us know. Does the movie know he's Clark? Why did the crystals respond? I'm talking about Superman Returns.
Yeah.
But the same thing happens in Superman 2, the Reed film. But anyway, so it felt like that to me. And so then, that's the film. And then we actually get a cool in-credit sequence. I actually quite liked the animation as the movie goes out. I thought that was actually pretty cool. But so I have to conclude that this character is what I call a Mary Sue plus. She is a Mary Sue plus main character powers, plus stupidity of the antagonist. So it's like the people that argued against calling her Mary Sue kept saying, she lost and she earned it. No, she didn't earn it. She survived by the hair of her chinny chin chin by a fluke every time. Every time this girl should have been dead, some kind of fluke saves her, and that is not earning it. That's main character, that's plot armor. So as far as I'm concerned, I dub her Mary Sue plus. That's my conclusion with this. And the last thing I have to say before I listen to you guys' conclusions is, y'all have listened to me enough by now to know my standard. And my standard is repeat playability. And I'm not saying that has to be everybody's standard at all. I'm saying that's what I use. Do I want to watch it again? Is there even a scene in it that grabbed me so hard that I will, like the Superman Returns airplane rescue? Like, even if I don't watch the whole movie, I'll watch that scene every time. Even if I don't want to watch the movie, I'll bring that up on YouTube and watch Brandon Routh Superman save that airplane, because it's incredible. It's everything you would think that would be if such a thing were possible in real life. That was the key to the Reeve movies, is that you will believe a man can fly. If Superman were real, he'd look like that. Well, that's the one time in Superman Returns where they got me, man. There's not one scene in this Prey movie that gave me that feeling. There's not one scene in this Prey movie that made me feel like, let me at least fast forward to that scene so I can see it again. There's not one scene in this Prey movie that even has a memorable line. We still say, I ain't got time to bleed. We still say that from the 87 film.
This movie said it too. And by the way, I hate when they do that.
This movie said
lack of originality, right? You can come up with your own lines, but
this movie said, if it bleeds, we can kill it. That was the line they used.
Right. So when you've got to co-opt other lines from the far superior original 80s films, but you can't come up with any kind of dialogue. And I know they overdubbed it in Comanche, and I know you can listen to the whole thing in Comanche, and that's cool, and I think that adds to the atmosphere. But you don't have any original memorable lines that would make me want to go back and say, I need to see that scene again. So so like I said, about 3/4 of the way, I was done. By movie's end, I'm done. And she's a Mary Sue plus, and I don't care if I ever see her again. Okay, so let me hear you guys' conclusion. Start with Bracey.
One thing that's a real shame is this film is beautifully shot. I mean, the cinematography is fantastic.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that raised up my expectations. I thought it looked gorgeous. A lot of things were really well staged. Even if they didn't make sense, particularly plot-wise, there are things they did that I thought the staging was good. The set pieces were nice. I like the attention to detail that they put into costuming and things like that. So it's not completely awful. But again and again, I just keep seeing the potential. And when we had the great setup of things like the bear trap and the quicksand pit, a hallmark of the Predator is typically beating it in a clever way, because we can't go toe to toe with the Predator. The only guy who came close had a draw. The Yakuza guy, he and the Predator both killed each other. And you have to imagine, like, he's got to be like a top level sword expert to even have achieved that. That's just incredibly rare. So seeing her ping pong around this thing, and the Predator slicing off its own arm was ridiculous. And I noticed that they tried to set this up in the choreography, that the Predator tended to overcorrect with its shield when it was defending itself, and when it doesn't immediately pull its arm out of the tree, its claws out of the tree. And I just threw up my hands when I saw that, and was like, okay, yeah, this might be I'm gonna give them some good faith and say this is a really overconfident Predator, because it goes Mike Tyson on a grizzly bear. But I couldn't give them that. I did not have enough goodwill for that. I thought that was stupid. As somebody who's practiced martial arts and has worked with dual weapons, that's just not something you do once you get past the basic levels. You understand your body mechanics. You understand where to have your weapon, where your limbs are, so you don't hit yourself. And I thought that was just incredibly dumb. And I really thought I didn't like the whole setup with the biohelmet to have it snipe itself. I thought a much more clever thing, and something I was not expecting. I was incredibly surprised when it happened that she let it, because the thing with the biohelmet and the trick shot, that's BVS levels of Batman planning to beat you. Because Batman set up the kryptonite spear in just the right place, as if he knew like he or Superman was going to knock him to that spot at just the right time. So that's Batman levels of planning. I didn't buy that. But what I thought would have been so clever, and I really thought they'd done that because the Predator's big, he's heavy, he has to breathe. I thought she was going to trick him into the bog, and because he's so much bigger, when he hit the bog, I thought he was just going to sink, and that was the end of him. And so that takes care of a lot of things. We don't have the nuclear detonation. We lose the Predator. We lose all of his gear in the bog, and nobody's the wiser. It's still the stuff of legends. And maybe she goes back home, and she, in my rendition of the film, her brother actually survives. They go home together, so he's got somebody backing her up. But then there's still that legend they pass down. They're like, look to the skies. If you see the Thunderbird, the hunters are coming again. They could have built such a fantastic mythology out of that, and it would have cleaned up everything, because it's always important to kind of clean up the Predator's mess. And then they screw up another opportunity, because we have the pistol. We have the 1719 pistol, and she's got it. Why has she got it? One thing we never get to see in the Predator movies is we never get to see the Predator finish its hunt and go home. This would have been the time. He claims the pistol from the Frenchman. It starts snowing. It's no longer hunting season. I don't like the cold. I'm a jungle-based, I'm endothermic. I need the heat. I like the heat. Let me call my ship back down. I go home. And it's like, good on you, little girl. You did pretty good. I give you a little respect. Maybe I'll throw you some trinket, but I'm taking this pistol home. It's like, this is for a memorable hunt you gave me. And that ends up, going to the elder Predator as, tribute or something. God, that still bothers me about that thing's face. Can you guys remember anything about his face? His face was just a bunch of mush with a couple of mandibles. Ugh.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I can't remember anything about his face. It's like it's like a potato with fangs. Put the mask back on. And
Mr.
then, of course,
Potato Head Predator.
Yeah, and then of course we got to have the super girl boss moment where like she comes back, and she doesn't just prove her point. She's got to prove her point in the most bitchy way. She just starts ordering the tribe, and the tribe just falls in line.
Okay, and if that's not Mary Soonis, then I don't know what is. She just comes back, like I said. That's it. Everybody has to listen to me now.
And then we can see she's passed on the curse of girl boss to that little girl. Like, that'll be me in a couple of years.
Right, and they all just say okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Steve. Concluding thoughts.
Yeah, I have to completely agree on the girl boss thing. This is an archetype that I can't stand. It's been way overdone in too many different shows and movies and all of this sort of thing. And to see this come back again here, yeah, that's a no. I'm not a fan. I was really looking to enjoy this movie. I was really trying to hope that I would get something out of it. The first half of this movie bored me to tears. I did not care about anybody in this movie except the dog. I mean, that's when my favorite character is the dog, you fail. Okay, after half of the movie, you fail. And on top of that, it's like, in addition, I'm not somebody who goes out and actively looks for narratives in my media because I really don't want to be the one, who's trying to look for these things and then finding them. Because when you actively look too hard, you do find them. So I always try to give it a chance by not actively looking for them. I wasn't actively looking for it, and I found the agenda in it. That tells me that you guys are signaling way too hard. And it completely is obvious that all of this was about the agenda. All this was about pushing the girl boss character. All this was about pushing colonialism is bad. Yeah, you can make that case, but this was not the way to do it. I feel like it's a one-sided narrative that is completely skewed because you didn't bother to get the history right. You didn't bother to get the cultures right. Either the Comanche or the French or anyone else. And it's just the whole thing comes together. With this character who is annoying and has like the worst traits, that are associated with girl boss type characters. And then on the other hand, you have her get away with it because you have other characters, that are doing the work for her. A bunch of other characters doing the work for her. And then on top of that, you have an inept junior woodchuck predator who for so far I've seen is probably the worst predator I've ever seen. Like, even Alien versus Predator and Alien versus Predator Requiem, as much as we bash those movies, we did not bash on the Predators. The Predators in those movies were good. Okay. This Predator was not good because he had to take the dive so we could make the girl boss look good, and so that we could hammer our message with no subtlety whatsoever. This movie fails, absolutely fails.
Okay, I'm gonna have to borrow from Worf after watching this movie. I am not a married man. Okay, Nibs.
Well, the first thing I gotta say is this.
You're Batman. Yeah, I am Batman.
So I had to put that out there.
Okay.
So, she's Batman. I thought that was outstanding. So yeah, somewhere out there, her brother Spirit is going, yeah, you are Batman. No. What I have to really take about this is I honestly didn't really see her as a full Mary Sue. She had more Mary Sue elements, and the reason I didn't see her as a Mary Sue is because she fails too many times. She's incompetent. She gets destroyed too many times. That said, if we're going to say that she has elements of Mary Sue plus huge plot armor, so she's a Mary Sue plus, I definitely buy that. So yeah, she is a Mary Sue plus. I just don't think she's a Mary Sue because I don't think she's competent enough to be a Mary Sue. She didn't even kill the Predator on her own. I think that that's an absolutely valid point that she killed the Predator because A, the Predator was dumb and cut off its own damn arm. That's number one. And number two, because her brother beat the hell out of the thing. And then for some reason sat there and let it stab him. Because he heard that Predator coming. And instead of those two going back to back, he just sat there and looked around and said, "Hey, stab me in the back."
Yeah,
so
we could have that Captain America Winter Soldier moment, when they're fighting Iron Man. That would have been sweet.
Yeah, and then the two of them could have come back together, and he raises her hand in victory and says that she's proven herself as a warrior or something.
Yeah, the story should have been about the brother and the sister, coming together, looking past their differences, and working together to beat the Predator. But she has to be the one to look. She has to come about and be the girl boss.
He does the dumbest thing in the world by taking. I didn't count it, but it must have been a full 14 or 15 seconds from the time he hears the Predator moving up on him. He hears it. He just stands there and says, "Well, I'm going to die now.
Yes.
I'm going to stand here and let it kill me. Good luck."
Right. He said, "This is as far as I go."
Yeah. So I'm just like, what are you doing? This doesn't have to be as far as you go. Turn your little butt around, go back to back with your sister, because you heard it coming. You are tuned in. You're fighting. You're the ultimate warrior of this tribe right now. Get your butt in battle position instead of just sitting there going, "Well, the rider
had a horse. Take her out of there. Why not just run with her?"
The
Rose, the water's really cold. Can I climb up on the double door? It's
Yeah.
like, no, Jack, there's really not enough room. Why don't you just sink to the bottom of the ocean?
Not to mention this predator is bleeding, so I'm sure he's got fluorescent blood streaming out of his arm everywhere. But he's like, no, the rider's done riding me. It's time for me to go. You know, so
Yeah,
like,
we should have seen blood dripping out of that invisible arm.
Yeah.
Like,
and leaving a trail everywhere he walks. Yeah. Plus, he's bleeding across multiple places on his body, and that's going to show up. You know, enough of that though, because the real thing I want to get to, and we never really got to it, so I'm going to hit it in my final remarks here, is that the whole part of this movie is dumb, completely unrealistic. The minute she decided to go back out against the tribe's wishes and their chief's wishes and go hunting, at that point, the tribe writes her off. They certainly don't send everybody out there after her.
That's right.
And her brother might have gone after her against his father's wishes, but that's it. So when she comes back, she certainly would have been welcomed as a conquering hero. They would have acknowledged her accomplishment. But you know what she's done? Did you notice when in that scene what happened? Who's left in that tribe? That tribe is now made up of women, children, and old men.
Old men.
Mm-hmm.
All of their warriors, all of their hunters are dead.
Because they went after her.
Because of her stupidity. That tribe is dead. Because she's not going to be able to feed everybody.
That's right.
That tribe is dead.
They wouldn't have rejoiced at the way things turned out, and they definitely would have written her off when she went out there on her own. But somebody would have said what you just said. What do we do now? All the boys are gone.
Yeah, because congratulations. Welcome back. You're alive. Because now everybody else is dead. Because what is it? 6, 7, 8? The 8 members of the tribe that provided food and protection for them are gone.
And not only that, we don't have any men to help propagate the next generation.
Yeah.
Whatever you've got is what you've got.
So you have now got women, young children. I mean, I didn't even see many adolescent males around. I don't know. No. I mean, I wasn't looking that close. Young children and old men. That ain't gonna cut it. That tribe is in serious trouble. And once again, I said it once, I've said it twice, and now I'm going to say it 3 times. Know your material that you're writing. These people live in a tribe. Every person in that tribe has a vital role for the survival of the entire tribe. That's the women, that's the men, that's the children, that's the old men, that's the old women. All of them fill a function. Mm-hmm. When you get rid of an entire class of people within that tribe is dead.
Yeah.
Everybody's dead. And if you don't understand that, then don't write it. Don't write it. Sorry, rant over. I'm done. That
was well worth saying.
No, it was definitely.
I thought about that, but I didn't think to say it in my own time.
That was definitely well worth saying. And again, it adds to the layers of unbelievability just to make her the girl boss, like Steve said, just to make her, come out triumphant at the end. But what Nims keeps bringing up is the practical impact of her actions. And every time she did something completely impractical, completely unrealistic, completely against what the tribe would have done, not only did the monsters not react like animal predators would have reacted, but the people didn't react like they would have reacted, all things considered. Because for someone to not say all our boys are dead because you had to prove something that you never had to prove anyway, and now we don't have any male seed left to do whatever, so she's like, we need to move, and somebody didn't say why.
Yeah, you see the rejoicing when she comes home. Where are all the others wailing that none of the men came home?
Yeah,
that's right. Who's going to fight off?
It's all about her.
The next bear. Who's going to fight off the next lion? Because all them people is gone.
Well, who's going to fight off the next tribe? They're going to get absorbed by another tribe. That's the only way they live.
Even more basic than that. Who is going to hunt the meat to feed all of those people?
Well, apparently she is.
Yeah,
she's got a little magic rope.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
She gets lots of rabbits.
So in conclusion, like I said, she's got to be a Mary Sue Plus, and we have shown on every level on how the movie didn't think it through. And when we see writing like that, I know what that means as a professional writer. What that means is you wrote this movie from the point of view of saying, I want to see these cool scenes in the movie, but you didn't write a narrative. So you said each scene, each setup, each transition is just an excuse to get to the next cool scene that, ooh, wouldn't it be cool if? But there's not a through line besides her wanting to prove something that she didn't have to prove. And Nim said it best. They would have abandoned her as a tribe many moons ago, many choices ago, when you keep defying the order to try to prove something that you don't have to prove. And with all the males dead, then someone would have been a realist and been like, what are we going to do? And, would have at least partly blamed her. And again, if the boys don't make it back to explain everything that's going on, and if the boys don't tell us, well, y'all need to move, if the boys don't tell us what Dutch said in the first film, we need to build a defensive position somewhere and take our stand against this thing, she comes back holding that thing's head, and that's just it.
I mean, and there was a way to even write her coming back after being abandoned by the tribe. She could have gone off in the tribe, and there's an argument between the son and the chief, and he says, no, she's lost to us. And then she spends an entire winter out there running and surviving from a predator and learning her skills, and then survives and ends up killing it somehow and comes back and returns to the tribe and is recognized. There's your story. That's a redemption. That's a redemption arc. I mean, you still have to show her earning it, but there's your redemption arc of that. She was like, she has made her bed. She's going to lie in it. And as far as I'm concerned, she's dead to me. And then she comes back and she survived and is recognized. Okay, then maybe I could buy it, depending on how you write it.
But what I can't buy,
her learning to value the tribe and her role in the tribe, and being a team player, learning to be a team player, that could have been an arc too. They could have done that.
Yeah.
Nope. Any of us could have come up with a better arc than what we saw in this movie.
Okay, now
we already have.
You guys correct me if I'm wrong. At any point, did she have a boyfriend?
No.
It's like I said, at her age, she should have already had, been a wife and a mother.
No prospect.
She doesn't need one. She's a girl boss.
Yeah.
Not only that, I will say this. I wasn't going to bring it up now, but I don't know what it's like in Comanche, but most tribes, if you wear 2 feathers in your hair as a female, that means you're a mated pair. That denotes a romantic relationship, a romantic entanglement. That means that you're in a relationship. There's different meanings for feathers. Multiple feathers in a bonnet is a signs of honor, respect. It's a war bonnet. But if you're just wearing feathers in your hair, usually 2 feathers, for a warrior or a female, means that you have been married or you're in a relationship type thing like that.
Right.
Somebody just went like, Indians have feathers in their hairs. We'll just do that.
Right. Yeah. And that was a whole nother realistic element to me, that she wouldn't have been whatever their equivalent of betrothed is, that she wouldn't have been, as Jeff said, already starting in on her family, that she's able to completely abdicate her responsibilities as a female in the tribe because of a quest that she doesn't need to go on. And no one told her, okay, well, you need to do the one thing you can do, which is produce children for somebody else's tribe. And a lot of people think that's sexist or whatever, but it's not my fault that God made women with a uterus. So if that makes you mad, then be mad. But somebody would have said, that what you need to prove is that you can bear strong children, raise strong sons, help us survive and propagate to the next thing while you're still young enough to actually do that. And the fact that that wasn't brought up too was another thing that jumped out at me. Like nobody said that. Like she just gets to do whatever she wants to do uncontested. And that's the Mary Sue-ness of it all, that everything she does goes against every grain that these people would have and everything that the predator would do and everything that the lion and the bear and the natural predators would do. And she just gets away with it. And just nobody says anything. And everybody just says, well, okay, you're such a girl boss. Go ahead.
That very opening thing where mom kicks her and it's time to get up and go out and do the women's stuff. And then she looks ruefully at her brother, who's a hunter and warrior who gets to sleep in. That's like, they really set the tone from the very first scene in the film.
Yeah. And not saying that since he's a hunter, he was probably out till the middle of the night hunting at night because all the animals are up then. So
he had to run miles back last night, carrying a few 100 pounds of meat.
but they also said to tell when they let her outrun a deer.
Yeah.
The dog can outrun the deer. The dog actually herded the deer like a sheepdog would do. That was cool. But she outran the stag. And I'm saying, really? So once again, yep, she's Batman. She's Mary Sue Plus. She's whatever it needs to be to show that she's the dominant character and life form against everything she encounters. And even when she should be dead, she's not because reasons. If that's not the Mary Sue tag, I don't know what is. So my needle done tipped all the way after this review. All right, that's it for this review. We're going to call it here. I will say one thing that we are all on the same page on, and that is that we love this story world. And we would love to see a really well done film in the story world. And we wouldn't even have minded the Comanche setting or even the 300 years ago setting. All those were cool. But you've actually got to write a story that honors everything that you're using to. That's the thing. That's the thing. So anyway, I want to thank my co-host for another great review. And we're all hoping that we can get a Predator film that kind of does the story world justice. So thank you, Nims.
Absolutely. And you know what? This movie should have been awesome. It should have been incredible to see Native American tribe. And it should have been a Native American tribe taking on a predator. But, oh, well, it is what it is.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, the concept was really good with this movie. I feel like there were definitely, pieces that they could have put together to make a movie. And I will say this, the actress who plays Naru, I think would make a very good Danny Moodstar in a New Mutants film if they wanted to do that. I think she absolutely would be great in that role. So, I mean, there definitely are things that work. And as Jeff said, this is well shot. I mean, there are definitely pieces there. But it's just they didn't put the story together. They just didn't care about getting the lore together or making characters that we like, or that we cared about or we had investment in or making them competent. They just cared about making this one character, outshine everybody else, no matter what they had to do to make it happen. And unfortunately, it just didn't work.
Now I can't not see her as Danny Moonstar now.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think she'd be a better Danny Moonstar than who we got in the New Mutants film.
Absolutely.
And I like the New Mutants
now,
film. So.
Now the wheels are turning now. Thank you so much, Bracy.
Oh, yeah. DT, I hope you get your Predator cloak fixed because you've been popping in and out of visibility the entire podcast.
Yeah, I know.
Are you sitting in water?
No, it's a hidden talent. As I'm sitting in water, then my lava feedback would be showing.
Now, I'll say this about the film. When it comes right down to it, I did have a lot of high hopes for it. After the last Predator movie, I was really on board for a good Predator film. My recommendation, dig up the Dark Horse comic. They did it way better. Find the one where Native Americans encounter a predator. It's worth reading.
Cool. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Again, check out all of our other offerings on the United Capes Podcast Network and on Comic Crusaders. Check out our YouTube channels where we have retro reviews, where we have artist interviews, where we have new indie comic stuff. We just did one, shameless plug, for Blood World. We just did one, so be sure to check that out because we're so excited about this project and we can't wait for you guys to see everything we've been working on. And me and this crew will see you next time on the next episode of Sloppy Spoilers.
See you, everyone.
Spoiler.